Hey everyone, I'm Travis Wright, and you're listening to I'm a Fan Of, your show for music, comedy, and more. As always, if you're a musician, a comedian, or just someone that does something interesting, please reach out to me on Instagram at TravisCanListen. You can find me on Facebook at I'm a Fan Of, or you can reach out to me through the website at I'mAFanOfPod.com. Of course, if you just enjoy the show, please follow me there as well, and like and subscribe to the podcast. This episode, we have the hilarious Dani Bee in for an interview. Not only is she a very funny stand-up, but she is about to perform her very first one-woman show. That's going to be in December. I'm going to have tickets in the description of this podcast. Please click on that link, get tickets, go see this show. Let's help sell it out. I think it's going to be very, very entertaining, very funny, very interesting. As you'll see in the podcast, we discuss what it's going to be about briefly, but she has had a very rich history with geriatric care and Alzheimer patients and dementia patients. And she has just got story after story, and I'm sure we just only hit the tip of the iceberg on what she, the story she could share with us. So I imagine this one-woman show is going to be phenomenal. Just to give you an insight into some of the strange, interesting things that happen, she was involved with planning activities to make sure their lives are enriched and thrive. And one of the things that the residents wanted to do that she took them to multiple times were outings to Hooters. And it is just as interesting and entertaining as you think it might be. And that's definitely one of the things we discuss. So again, please get tickets to this show. I think it's going to be really cool. And I think it's going to grow bigger than maybe what we expect. So go check out the very first one ever to say you were there. For now, though, let's learn a little bit more about Dani Bee. I think she's absolutely great. I think you're going to like her. I enjoyed chatting with her, so I hope you enjoyed the interview as much as I did. This is Dani Bee. The I'm a Fan Of podcast. Music, comedy, and more. Dani Bee, welcome.
Hi.
And we didn't even start, and you're already being silly and goofy and ridiculous. And you were trying. I couldn't tell if you were being sarcastic, that if my studio space is comforting or comfortable or not. I thought you were like, oh, there's lights and stuff. This sucks.
No, I'm getting like basement vibes. Like it puts
basement
lotion,
vibes?
It puts lotion on the skin or gets the hose again, but
What-
more elegant.
What part makes this feel like basement?
Maybe it's the sound.
I spent just because it's quiet.
Yeah, maybe
Yeah.
it's the sound. Like no one will hear me scream. That got dark.
The place here where I lease it from. When I told them what I was going to do with the space, and they kind of didn't understand because a lot of it's just office space.
Yeah.
And then after I put everything up in here, they kept walking like from the hallway into here because there was like a noticeable quiet difference, and it was just kind of blowing their mind. They were just like, it's just so, like, what's so different about this? And I was like, well, yeah, we're going to record stuff in here. It needs to be nice and quiet.
Yeah.
But anyway, welcome. I'm so glad you're here. We each canceled on each other, so this has been like a long time in the making.
That's okay.
Yeah.
I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me on.
You are fucking silly on stage.
I am.
Like, really silly.
Thank you. I enjoy playing just different characters and kind of going in and out and popping in and out of different voices and crowd work.
Well, that was
love
the
it.
thing I noticed the most is you were so heavy on crowd work. And you're probably the first person, other than like a big time headliner anyway, that I was shocked at how quickly, because you just opened with crowd work, which I don't see that ever. And I want to say the set I saw, it was probably like half of your set at least was crowd work, but it felt so comfortable. You know what I mean? So when did you consciously start into crowd work, or have you always been that way? Or
No, I think that was just a night that I don't know. Sometimes I feel it and I'm going to go with it. And I think if you talk to different comics. I mean, I know you're just talking to me right now, and I won't speak for them. But sometimes it's different nights. So if you see us on a Tuesday or a Thursday or a Friday, sometimes it changes, which it probably doesn't make me sound very good or consistent. As a comic, you need to be very consistent. But
do you though?
Maybe.
Do you though?
Because I'm not with the big league, so I'm not at a point where I can just do crowd work. But somehow I get. People are like, Dani, have fun with it. Go up there. And when someone tells me to go have fun on stage, I'm going to just do whatever I want, and then I'll say, okay, let's start some jokes.
But that's exactly what I
So-
picked up on was fun. Because let's be real, that particular show, there was a ton of characters in the audience at that show.
Yeah.
It was easy to like get distracted and just go like, what is happening here?
Yeah,
And
I'm pretty sure I have ADD as well. So if someone like, I think there was a guy in the front and he maybe was on something or wasn't on. I don't know, but I was just like, sir, are you good? Are you falling asleep? He goes, I'm so high right now. And I was like, oh. And then his food came. I was like, you're welcome. There you go,
there you
sir.
go. There it is.
So there's just so many different characters, and sometimes you could tell from their body language if they want to be talked to or they'll just up and say something.
Yeah.
I think the pandemic, which I hate to bring that up on here, but I think
it's
it
okay.
changed how audience members behave.
I can see that.
They kind of feel like they're in their house because they probably watched a lot of HBO or Netflix or something.
That's true. I never thought about it that way, that we
Yeah.
had 2 years of not being in public situations, and some of us who were already struggling like with public etiquette probably
Would
got a
you
lot
like to
worse.
talk about it, Travis?
About etiquette?
Yeah. Did something happen with you?
No, I
recently?
mean, I was not as locked down, you know, like we were able to get out like with our jobs and stuff. We weren't in our homes. And but I don't know. I've been to enough comedy shows. My wife and I play the game where we try to pick out who's going to be the heckler. You know what I mean?
Oh, that's
like
a
when
great game.
Oh, it's so much fun. Like before the show starts, and we're just sizing everyone up, and we're like, it's definitely that table, maybe that one, maybe that person right
Yeah.
there. And we're getting pretty good at it. You
That's
can kind of, there's like, I haven't nailed it down to like a look or anything, but it's like you see them,
Yeah.
and there's like a level of attention seeking, even when they're just ordering a drink, and you're like, that's the one right there.
That's my favorite person.
Really?
I'm like, bring it on. Like, comics will come up to me and they're like, "Oh my gosh, Dani, this heckler," and I'm like, "Where is he? Where is she? let me talk to them."
You had a sweet way though of insulting people, but like I don't know if it was a conscious tag, but the show I was at, you kept being like, no, but seriously, thanks for coming out, and like that for some reason that would just win them over, even though you just kind of because like you weren't like destroying them or anything, you were just making comments, and it's like it was almost like they were happy to be a little roasted by you, whereas other comics really struggle, like it gets aggressive and they dig in, you know. I think there's like a likable quality just in the way you speak.
I've had some people say
Yeah.
that about my voice, like I should do anime or voiceover characters because I can play a young girl or a young teenager, and then
I'm
when
worried
my-
about who told you that though.
Yeah, I mean, I still get carded at the movie theaters.
Really?
Yeah. So they'll say,
Like for rated R movies?
they'll say, "Is your dad here?" And then my husband's with me, and it gets really awkward. And I'm like, how old does he look next to me? You know?
Yeah.
But I don't know. I just kind of fell into this. I don't want to say niche. Maybe that's not the right word, but I just really enjoy doing improv and sketch and stand up and doing act outs and storytelling, and I kind of simultaneously do them all, which could be exhausting, you know, if you were to put me in the middle of a lineup and someone says, "Dani, I need you to do a hard 5, you know, light you at 2, get off the stage," and I'm happy to I can do that, but then afterwards I feel like I wanted to do 10 or 15 or
I
crowd
feel like
work,
you need a
so-
solid 15 minimum. And not like you need it because like some people need a solid 15 to like get into their material, like to, it's
Right.
like a path, but for you I just feel like it's it seems, I guess since you did so much crowd work, it feels like it is a lot of improv.
Yeah.
And so it's like it's not that you need the 15 minutes to like get into it. It's like you need the 15 minutes to like go around the room almost. You know what I mean?
I think that was the show, if I remember correctly, that was just the show that was like up and down and up and down and up and down. And I think since I was closing out, it was just my job to bring back the crowd.
You
And
weren't closing out on this show.
Really?
Yeah.
Was I not closing
Nope,
out?
you were like right in the middle. Yeah. But this was the show.
Are you sure?
If this was the show where if you were on stage and you were looking to your right, okay, there was a table of like maybe 6 or 7 women who would not put down. They had like their phone had like a giant ring light on it, Do you remember that?
No,
and
didn't see
they
that.
kept doing like stories and stuff the whole time with their bright ass light on in the
How
corner.
did I miss? I would have roasted them the entire time.
I was
That's terrible.
thinking that maybe like either the headliner or the owner of the club or the manager or whoever was like, hey guys, let's be nice. Let's not,
Yeah.
because every comic was like glancing over there like they just wanted to annihilate them, and nobody did.
Oh, crap.
But I'm trying to think what else.
Well, now I feel bad because I was in the middle of the set, so I probably shouldn't have done crowd work. I should have stuck to my.
No,
my
I love the
15.
crowd work. I think you're so good at it.
Well,
Yeah. I
minus
liked
your
it.
joke. I like your crowd work, but your jokes.
No,
were okay.
the jokes were great, but I don't see a lot of really good crowd work that's not like usually it's a drunk person saying something stupid and the comic
Yeah.
is like offended, and then they do some crowd work and it's like, great, I got my little TikTok clip of me roasting somebody and getting them to shut up.
Yeah.
And that's funny, but it's not fun for the whole group, right?
Right.
Whereas your crowd work was just fun. It felt like even though there was some insults in there, they were on board. They loved it,
Thanks. I had some people come up to me after, and I think I remember the so it was were the teachers in the corner? Did I
teachers?
Were there any teachers?
I don't remember teachers.
No?
This was at TK's in Addison.
That was a great night.
Yeah.
Of comedy, no sarcasm. I think. See, I gotta say that now.
I don't
'cause-
remember the headliner. It was some guy from LA, and he was okay. And there was a like another feature act from LA with them.
This is sad. I don't remember.
It's fine. It's
This
been a
is so
while.
sad.
It's been a while.
I'm so
That's
sorry.
what happens when we cancel on each other for a while.
No,
It takes a little bit.
No. I think
You've just got so many shows.
that
They
sounds
blend
so
together.
pretentious right now, but I kid you not. Someone came up to me and was like, "Hey, I really like that you roasted me at Plano House of Comedy, or I love," and I'm just like, I don't even remember the last time I performed at Plano House. But then
Oh, wow.
I have to, and that sounds really bad. I'm sorry, but I do, to piggyback on that, what you said, I do love crowd work. When I first started out, I was told by different people, managers, bookers, that, hey, you don't need to do crowd work. That's only for the headliner. That's only for closing out the show. And now I feel like I've kind of gotten to a point where I feel so comfortable. I think I can do it more, which maybe that's just me being naive, but I just really, really love it. And I like how people feel, because that little roast is fun to me. I enjoy it.
If you're good at it, right?
Right.
And if you're getting a good response or not when you're up there.
Yeah.
I, as a fan, I hate hearing all these little rules. And I get there's reasons why they exist, that like certain clubs and people want them some ways. But, I mean, the whole point is just to have a fun, funny night, And I think it's a little weird, like, if the headliners are like, no, don't do that. That's what I do. And it's like, crowd work? Isn't that just off, like,
Right, but I think it stems back from what I learned in the past was you don't want to overwork the crowd, and you don't want to rowdy up, or what's the word? You don't want to get them riled up, because if you exhaust the crowd, or if you get them talking, when the headliner does come up and he's got like a solid 45 to an hour, you're now exhausted everyone, and you've gotten to a point where they feel like they can talk back to the headliner, and they'll start heckling them. So
I get you. So it's more about opening the door. Like, don't open that just
but
yet.
I just kind of peek inside. I'm like, hey, how's it going?
You're looking through the little mail slot.
Yeah. I'm just like, it's me.
Yeah.
Hi. And then, but I will say this before, even though I could have sworn I closed out that show, but you're right. You know better about that show. Usually I go up to the headliner or whoever's closing. I go, hey, do you mind if I do crowd? And they'll say, wake this crowd up.
Nice.
Or bring this crowd back. Because if you dip and you go up and you go down, or if it's just, what's the word, stagnant, and it's just like pins and needles, and you can hear people's forks and knives, and like someone's getting drunk, and they're having a good time. TK's, everyone has a good time at TK's, but I remember it just being, and I was like, I have to bring this crowd back. This is going to be a nightmare, which is exhausting for me, but I
won't
enjoy
say
it.
who it was, because
Please
it doesn't
don't.
matter.
Yeah. Well,
And I'm sure they're better than what happened to them that evening.
okay.
But they were flat like that. Like, it wasn't horrible. It just wasn't hitting. And they were talking about very I'm trying not to give away too many details because I don't want anybody's feelings to get hurt. But but basically, like, they seemed like they were going through some stuff in their personal life.
Okay.
And it's almost like they brought that to work on the stage a little bit. It was making the crowd a little awkward, like, ugh, a little tense, like, oh, I feel so bad for you. Because it wasn't funny. It was more like venting.
Okay.
And then it was like, I guess I'll do a joke or two. And the jokes don't hit. And you're just like, and everybody's trying to, like, get on board.
Come on.
Hey,
you can do it. Yeah.
And it just didn't work. And then, and then you got to come up and do your thing, and everybody's, all right, we're back on board.
And we've all been there.
Yeah.
All comics have been in that.
Yeah, I don't judge anybody off of, like, one set.
Yeah, I wish you would have seen more sets, but that's fine.
What?
That's fine.
You said that you like doing all the different aspects, stand-up, sketch, improv. What was first, though? What did you start doing initially?
Right. Well, before all of this, I started doing choir and theater.
Okay.
So that was back in the day. I did.
Was this like high school or?
Sixth grade. Sound of Music.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm not gonna sing.
No, I won't ask you to.
Yeah.
Where are you from originally?
Plano, Texas.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, I was born in Dallas. Started getting into theater, and I kind of changed the way my friends saw me because I was soccer, and then I was like, oh, I'll take theater, and then I fell in love with it, and then choir, and everybody was like, why are you doing that? Like, wait, just come over here, focus on sports. I'm like, no, I started we made paper mache masks, and I got to, like, get into characters, and I got to do hair and makeup, and I just fell in love with doing characters. So I'm sad I didn't stick with it, and I let the peer pressure just focus on soccer and volleyball, and then I got into tennis, and then it was just, so my brothers played sports, so I was like, I was always silly and goofy growing up. Like, I was always a class clown, and then once I got out of there, I went to school at Texas State University, and I focused on gerontology and applied sociology, and then I started going to open mics in San Marcos. It was very small, like, cringeworthy.
Yeah, I know San Marcos. Yeah.
Do you know? Did you go there?
No, but we went there for a few parties, and it's an interesting place.
I mean, you float the river a couple times.
Yeah, absolutely.
It changes you.
I love floating the river.
Yeah.
But anyway, go on.
I miss it a lot. I didn't realize I was wearing my old colors. So. But no, I learned a lot about the comedy scene there, and I saw a couple of comedy shows in Austin.
In San Marcos, do they have any kind of, like, established club? Is it all just, like, bar shows?
It was like bar shows and open mics. And so
who's running the majority of that? Just a couple comics out there?
At the time, I haven't been back in a very long time, so I don't know if it's still.
You need to hit your roots up again.
I know.
And see what's going on
I thought
there.
about it. They'd be like, "Well, I don't even know if they're still there," because it was kind of like the college students being like, "Hey, we got an open mic.
Gotcha.
Next up," and then in between they would do karaoke. Ooh. So it was
in between, like, you're a comic, we're gonna do some karaoke, then another comic.
Yeah.
Oh,
it was
that's
fun.
fascinating.
It was so fun.
What's it like in a room like that, though? Because that sounds like everyone's having a pretty good time.
So, right, a foosball table, and then air hockey, and then they had a pool table, and then they had a bar in the back and a bar at the front, and then they had this.
Do you remember the name of the place?
I want to say Cellar.
Cellar, okay.
Cellar, or the.
Is it like Denton where the bars kind of come and go, or do they have like, these are the bars we have?
You know, it's funny you say that, because when I did a couple shows in Denton on the square, every time I went there, it reminded me of San Marcos. Yeah. And if I, like, closed my eyes, I was like, this isn't San Marcos, but it's really close. Like, it was so, I got that nostalgic. It was so great.
Pure college town, yeah.
Yeah, and the comedy scene, much bigger. I mean, like, here's Denton comedy, and then here was San Marcos. It was not the same, but I felt that with all the college students being like, hey, I want to try comedy. I think I did comedy at a gas station in Denton. No way.
Yeah, oh, that's right.
I think it's still going, right?
I think it's still going. They would do punk rock shows in that gas station.
Oh, I did not know that.
They, like, push the aisles over, and then you're, like, performing in there. Yeah.
Awesome.
Oh, my gosh. I had these guys. Were you performing comedy here when they were doing the Brave Voice podcast in Denton? Did you ever hear about that? I think they stopped doing it right at the start of the pandemic. So it was
that Joey Johnson?
No, it was the the main one I remember is a guy named Taylor Higginbotham.
Oh, yeah. I know Taylor.
So
yeah.
Taylor and two of his friends, Brad and...
Was it Dan Danzy?
Maybe Brad?
Brad?
No, not Dan Danzy.
Oh, they're going to kill me right now.
But anyway, yeah, I think it was Brad. And anyway, it doesn't matter. They stopped doing it. But it was a very fun, like, live podcast show. So you would get up at the bar. It was Andy's bar on the old square by the courthouse or whatever it is. And like one or two comics, I think, would do their stand-up. Mm-hmm. And then they'd kind of like do a quick changeover, and then they would do like a podcast interview. And they're all real silly, so it was like that. But they were kind of the glue of like the little comedy scene up there.
Yeah.
And now I don't know who's really... You said Joey Johnson. I guess he's doing stuff up there now.
I don't know.
I don't know anything that goes on in Denton.
Doing stuff, but I remember being there, and there was a night. I think
this is the gas station, right?
Yeah, the gas station. And I just remember people coming in during my set, and that was like one of the first nights where I just riffed. And every time someone would go to the back and they'd like try to get a soda, I'd be like, man, like Coca-Cola's looking pretty good right now.
So they're still functioning as a convenience store? Like people are coming in, like getting chips?
I'm pretty sure they are. But so
that's a very Denton thing. Like I love it. I'm not talking shit about it. This sounds fun.
It was so funny. And I just was like, I can't believe I'm driving it. Because 35 was such a... I mean, I'm pretty sure it's still with the construction. But
it's always a bitch. It's always so shitty.
The time.
Because it can be 10:30 at night and it's just standstill traffic.
Yeah.
And then you get up somewhere and you're like, there was nothing. There wasn't an accident shutting down all the lanes. It was nothing.
Yeah, it was just people getting over.
Yeah.
And like merging.
And they don't know how to do it. And then some days you can literally just do 85 the whole way and there's no problem. And you're like, what? There's no consistency on this road. I'm either 45 minutes early or 45 minutes late.
That's true.
Yeah. But it sounds like San Marcos and Denton have a lot of those parallels. Like those college towns have such a big rotation. You know, there's a new class every year.
For sure.
It's like Denton, San Marcos, like they should have a club. Even if it's a small one, you know, a little showcase style club or something.
Yeah, so it's funny you say that. I just did a show at Laugh Out Loud in San Antonio, I want to say 2 weeks ago, and I absolutely loved it, but I had to stop and go through San Marcos.
Oh, yeah.
And I saw that a lot of the places are still open from when I went to school there. So it was really, I almost got teared up, but then I saw these girls and they were, you know, they were like, what? Let's get shot. Like, I think a game just got out, and then these guys were like, let's do this. And I was like, just feeling that school spirit. I was like, yeah, let's do this. And then I was like, oh, I gotta take a left here. I gotta go. I can't drive. I gotta drive to San Antonio.
You just crack the window enough to just be like, woo!
Yeah. I was like, I have a. It's not like
I'm sorry, I did the roll down. Who has the roll down anymore?
I'm sure a lot of people have the. I kind of miss it.
I don't think they make the roll down.
It was like the one time I could work out. It was like, oh, that's nice. Now it's just like, just my finger, you know. But no, this is kind of off the topic, but after you go out on the square, they had this thing called the Dirty Dog, and it was like the late night. It was so good, though. It was like the late night munchies, if you will. And so it was like a hot dog or like a bratwurst, and they had. I'm salivating because I'm getting hungry just thinking about it.
Do you want to get some hot dogs later and drive down there?
I really do. But so they had French fries, and then they had this like spicy ranch mayo, and then they had mac and cheese.
Ooh.
And it sounds like, oh my gosh.
No, that sounds,
but
if you're nice and drunk, that is a fantastic meal.
It was the best. It was the best. It was on this little corner, and this guy was like, hey, you want everything? I'd be like, give me two. Like, I was just like, give me two. I don't know if you remember.
And you act like your best friends. Yeah. You're like, yeah, man. Yeah, definitely.
Did you see Point Break?
Of course. I made my wife watch it because she had never seen it.
Oh.
So she watched it like in her 30s, and it all looks cheesier now. And I was like, you don't understand. You don't understand how cool it is. Because I was trying to explain to her, have you ever seen the movie Hot Fuzz?
Yeah.
Okay, I was trying to explain how the guy in Hot Fuzz who's playing like the buffoon cop wants to shoot his gun all the time. And he's like, do you ever lay on your back and shoot your gun in the air, you know, like in Point Break? And she's like, I don't get the reference. I was like, you got to watch this. He can't shoot him, but he needs to stop him, but he can. Anyway, I'm sorry. Go on.
No, but in the what I would do to the guy in the corner, I'm so mad I forgot his name. I'd be like, Utah, give me two. everybody, all the guys
Give
would be
it
like, yeah, Utah, give me two. That's a great movie. And the girls would be like, what? His name's not, we're not even in Utah. We're in Texas.
His name's Billy.
His Billy. But no, God, I love that
What
movie.
a great,
It's great.
That's what those college towns are great at, is those little memories like that. Just the silliness of it all,
Yeah.
you know. I got my degree from, like, I started at a community college, got my associates, and then my bachelor's was like an online thing. And
Yeah,
so
that's
I know,
good.
but I feel like
You didn't get to have that experience.
no. And
Yeah.
part of me is like, fuck that. I don't need, I had experience. Like,
You got a basement now.
I've got a
this.
basement that feels like a Silence of the Lambs thing, so that's good. Well, I played music. Like at the time everybody was going to college, I played music, so I got to like travel around the country in a van. So that was its own experience. It was fun.
You're not helping this picture about.
It was so much fun.
That's awesome.
Living in a van, it didn't have any
Down
AC.
by the river.
We were literally went coast to coast, border
Yeah.
to border, and it was so much fun. But you know, that's not the same as like those college towns. So I was always like college town adjacent. Like I'd go with a friend who was there, you know,
Yeah.
and so that was always really fun. But you get those really one-off experiences.
For
that
sure.
Are, like where else can you be like, Utah? Give me two.
Give me two. You can't.
And it'd be
It's-
like a fond memory, you know.
for sure.
That's interesting. So, what what were you studying while you were there?
Oh, gerontology.
Yeah. I know what that is. That's basically it's you're studying geriatrics, right?
Yes.
What made you at a young age go, that's what I want to do?
Yeah.
Because that's not the average. Like, how old were you when you decided?
Oh, I figured that out in my 20s.
Yeah, because when you're in your 20s, like nobody even thinks about old people.
It's so weird. I love seniors. I love elderly people. I love Luby's cafeteria. I love the conversation.
My wife, when she was pregnant, went to Luby's without me because she thought I would criticize her. And I love Luby's.
Yeah.
And she told me like this year that my son's 3. She was like, oh yeah, when I was pregnant, I went without you because I thought you'd make fun of me. I was like, I fucking love Luby's.
Oh my gosh,
I was
you
like,
guys
my family,
had a moment.
I was like, my family, we would go to Luby's, you know?
Yeah.
And I was talking to her about how like, you know how King of the Hill, like the one character's name is the Luann Platter. Did you know about that?
Okay, don't hate me. I just started watching King of the Hill.
Oh, I'm
It's
glad you get to
hilarious.
enjoy it.
Like,
yeah, so Luann, her name
Oh
is
my
Luann
gosh,
Platter. It's amazing. And so I was telling her, I was like, I'm really just sad that you didn't invite me now.
Yeah.
And I would have loved to go there.
what is her voice like, Luann Platter? Or I can just
It's
listen to
it's
it.
Brittany Murphy.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And she kind of talks like she's stupid and an airhead, but she's like really country.
Okay.
It's hard for me to do it. There's a
Yeah.
very like Brittany Murphy's got those weird qualities to the
Yeah.
that she can do. But yeah, that was like she was doing that I think before like 8 Mile and stuff.
Yeah.
That was one of her bigger roles, and she crushed it. Yeah.
Well, my husband, he would do something around the house, and I'd be like, "Why are you doing that?" And he'd be like, "I'm gonna butcher this. I'm so sorry."
ahead.
He'd be like, "God damn it, Bobby!" like he does it so much better. But I would be like, "What are you? Who is Bobby? Like, who are you talking about?" He'd be mowing the yard. I'd be like, "Hey, do you want to eat now or after? Are you gonna weed eat?" He goes, "Damn it, Bobby!" Like he just would always do that. So he was like, "You got to watch King of the Hill," and he
You
thinks
got to.
so funny.
That's funny that you just started watching it because I just started rewatching it.
Well, I also started watching Friends.
Yeah.
I've never seen Friends, and I love
Yeah.
Pivot. So I'm getting into the whole, like, there's just, people are, I forgot her name. Oh, she's going to kill me. People are making little Lego, like, figures of scenes from Friends.
Oh, I didn't know that.
There's all these different Lego scenes. I don't know if you could use this, but I like seeing all, and I'm like, what's that scene from? They're like, Dani, this is the famous scene where Rachel, and I'm like, I didn't. Who's Rachel?
It's funny because there's a whole generation of people that talk mad shit on Friends. Like it's the dumbest, unfunny show that ever existed.
Well, to each their own.
I know,
Everybody
right?
has their own opinion, but
Yeah.
maybe they don't know what great writing is.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, it's like, yeah, every sitcom's going to have a little bit of silliness and stupidity, but
yeah,
you can't deny, like, as big as that show was,
for sure.
you know? But King of the Hill, one of my favorite quotes on there, I mean, there's so many, I'm not going to do that this whole show, but
We can if you want.
there's a line where one of Hank's workers is like hooked on heroin or something. I can't remember what's going on.
Oh.
And he can't even see it because he's such a good guy that he's like, he just assumes they're tired or something all the time. And when it finally gets brought to his attention, he's like, why would anyone ever do drugs when you could just mow your lawn? But it's like a genuine, serious, like that's what gets him high.
That's terrible.
It's such
that's funny, but
I know.
it's terrible. That's great.
But yeah. Anyway, sorry. We got a little off track
Geriatrics,
there. Lubies. Yeah, so you love old people and want to work with old people.
Yeah. So when I was really young, my grandfather had, this is going to get dark. I'm so
Go ahead.
sorry.
No, it's fine.
He had bone cancer.
Mm-hmm.
And he was, my grandparents on my mom's side were in their 40s when they had kids. So I was really young when they passed away. I didn't get a lot of time with them, but the time that I did have, some of the time I was in a nursing home or a hospital. And so I was around seniors when I was young.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm actually going to talk about it in my one-woman show. I'm kind of talking about a collection of characters over the years. And he ended up dying where I ended up working later in life. And I didn't know that was the place where he passed away because I was so young. But I ended up working there as an activities assistant. And there was one summer where we had our, I don't want to, kitchen aide, I guess you would call him. And he predominantly worked in cleaning of the dishes. And he just up and quit one day. So my boss grabbed me from my little tiny corner. It was like a mop closet, but it was great. And she said, hey, I need you to help out in the kitchen. And I'm thinking, all right, we're going to make desserts. I could do scrambled eggs. Like, we're going to cook. It's going to be great. And I was like, chef, where's my hat? And he was like, Dani, I need you to wash dishes. So for like a whole summer, I washed dishes. And then I ended up getting hooked on the restaurant industry. Like, I started working at restaurants as a waitressing on the side of doing activities assistant. And so working with seniors, I found out it's more than just bingo.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes the residents that you knew, they were on their deathbed or like they weren't going to transfer out. I would go into their rooms and I would ask, what do you want to do? And they'd be like, just read me a book. So I would sit with them and I got to spend their last days or their last weeks or their last months with them before they passed away. And what was crazy is there was one time I had to do a deposition because a resident had dementia so bad. She thought I was her granddaughter, so she tried to change her will to put my name in it. And I was like, please don't do that. It's so inappropriate. Don't do that. And
was her family, did she have a lot of family that still came by and was involved?
No.
Okay, because I was thinking that could look so sketchy.
For sure. And
that your name pops up on this.
She got very confused.
Yeah.
And I talked to my boss. I was like, I'm pretty sure she's changing her will. It's freaking me out. What do I do? So her family flew in from New York. And they were like, you can't do this. I was like, I had nothing to do with this. So we had to lawyer up and I had to go to the court. Like, we had to do a deposition.
Yeah, because you could see how that would look on their end where they're like, she's saying she didn't have anything to do with this. Yeah,
it really freaked me out. And I was like, I never want to be, no.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was funny because the questions they were asking me were like, so you, at the time I was going to Collin County Community College, and they were like, so you're getting your associate's degree? And I was like, yes. They're like, how many hours have you taken? And I was like, I don't know. I failed government like 3 times, but
most of the classes are like 50 minutes.
Yeah, I'm taking it at Richland because I can't take it anymore in Collin County. So now I'm like,
this was all before your degree?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you meant you got your degree and you were working in this facility now. So you were doing this before. Okay.
Yeah, I was doing this before. And so then I realized I wanted to be either a social worker or a hospital administrator.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started getting into administration. At one point, I wanted to be a nurse.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm so embarrassed to say this on here. I could not pass chemistry.
Well, that's not embarrassing. That's a hard course. That's a difficult class.
Everybody was so intelligent and so smart, and everybody was trying to help me study, and I couldn't memorize all the boron. I was like, I'm a moron. I need to get out of this class. Like, I just can't do it. And I got really defeated. I've never been that good at school, so school is a very sensitive subject for me. But
I understand.
Then I figured out, I want to do gerontology, and I love seniors. So I think once I found that passion, I don't want to say I was a lazy student, but I think once you find what you want to do, you're like, all right, this is the path I want to go down. This is it. So when I started, I took a class. It was really cool at Texas State called Death and Dying. And one of our projects was to go to a cemetery and find a tombstone that we thought was humorous.
Interesting.
And there were really funny tombstones. Like, I feel bad. I don't remember the tombstone I did for my project, but it was something like, don't bury Bill next to me. Or there's no room for you over here, you lying, cheating. Like, there were some really funny tombstones, and everybody picked one. What was weird is that she wanted us to spend time in the cemetery, so I would go at night with my roommates because we were supposed to feel something in the cemetery.
Did you?
I did, but I don't know. We're going to go down that path.
Well,
we can.
Part of you makes you feel like, I'm supposed to feel something here. So, like, you're a little on edge already.
I think it was sad. Like, I felt sad because I can't believe we're going to go down a path. It was a very old cemetery. So there were little tombstones, like little graveyards. And I was like, oh, maybe it's a dog or like a guinea pig or something. And then I looked at it and I was like, oh, that's sad. So I've figured out who they were. And then I kind of paid my respects. So anytime we'd go, we learned about different rituals, different cultures, and how they handle or how they do their ceremonies with celebrating life and death. And so it's funny. It's not funny, but it's interesting. I know what you mean.
It's interesting.
It's interesting that I connected with that course so much, and then you come to where I am today. It's just when you're in your 20s and you're around death all the time at such a young age, there were residents, I was going to their funerals. It was normal. Like, my wardrobe, I had my roommates at the time in college, they'd go into my closet and they'd be like, do you have anything other than black? Like, what are you, Wednesday? What is this? Like, and I love the Addams Family too, but I was always prepared for a funeral. I was always prepared for someone dying, and I get
it. I told you what I did before this. I don't ever really talk about it on the show, but
this is a safe space.
Well, what I was going to say, though, in my field, I work in the medical field, and for a long time I worked in the emergency room, and it's like, it's very common to see someone die. You know what I mean? And it's one of those things you can't quite explain how quickly you can adjust to it, yep, they make it, and then two, how quickly you can get right back into the rest of your day. It's like, let me check Instagram real quick. What's going on? You guys still want to do lunch here in like 15 minutes, you think? Well,
I think you kind of get desensitized from it in a way.
Yeah, because it's very interesting to describe. Like, anyone who works with people in some sort of healthcare setting, like what you did as well, is it's hard to explain, but it's like, but you get it. It's like you have empathy in the moment. It's not like you're cold and have no feeling, but also it's like, the zone you're in. You knew this could happen. Yeah. And it almost makes you a better worker to be able to like brush it off and like, all right, we still have other things and other people here that need to get taken care of.
It was crazy you say that, because I would have, someone across the hall from where my office was. I ended up becoming an activities director. I got a really, really great job right out of college. And I was, we were just waiting for hospice to come tell us that, I'm not, because of HIPAA, we'll just say Ethel. That's terrible. We'll say Sarah. Sorry.
Bon Jovi.
Yeah, Bon Jovi. No. When she passed away, all the residents were like, chop, chop, let's go. Bingo. Let's go. Did you get the prizes? Let's go. Hello. We got to go to the grocery store in an hour. And I was like,
she's not waiting on anything anymore.
Yeah.
Our turn.
It was like that. And so they were like, we got to get ready. And I would call bingo and I'd be like, B11.
What's usually the youngest age in something like that? What's kind of like the bottom end of the ages? Yeah. Like 70s or 60s?
You'd be surprised. So there are some people that have dementia and Alzheimer's that are like diagnosed at like 50. I think the youngest person I took care of while I was in college. I worked at an Alzheimer's house.
Mm-hmm.
We had about 12 residents that were there. Like, they live there. They're
It's like very advanced Alzheimer's.
Very advanced. And some of them were professors at Texas State or UT. So they ended up, and I cleared it with, I can say that. So they ended up staying there because it got so bad, and they wanted to be next to their university. So when I would go visit, there was one lady that was like, I want to say 55, and she was married. And I think the saddest thing was she fell in love with another Alzheimer's resident, and he was married. And they would come in for dinner, and they would watch their spouses fall in love. And something that I learned at an early age is, and I know every company is different. It's every company is different, but the one company I loved is they said, go on the journey with them and don't disrupt their way of thinking, because you could do more damage by breaking their stream of conscious of what their reality is. So instead of saying, if they get up and say, I got to go on the bus, I got to go pick up the kids from school. Instead of saying there's no bus, your kids are grown, you're not going to, instead of like crushing them and having them relive that heartache over and over. This one company I live for said, go on the journey with them. So I'd be like, here's your bus ticket. Let's go. I got your suitcase ready. Let's have dinner first, and then we'll see where the bus is. And we would just kind of, which now that I'm thinking about it, I had an epiphany. I was basically doing improv and theater with residents.
Yeah. And so the idea was, well, they'll move on to the next thing, and this won't be an issue. Sometimes
it was like redirect, which, it's interesting because now that I have 2 kids, there are times where I need to redirect them. So I'll go on their journey with them and their imagination. Not to say that I got to be careful. I don't want to disrespect the population. No, I get what you mean. But there are times
you do have childlike tendencies when your memory's like that. It's not that you are reverting to that, but it's like there are similarities, because it's a level of the comprehension that they're struggling with is similar to like a toddler, somebody who's like, they just can't comprehend some of the logic sometimes. It's just different reasons. Like, I get it. It's not insulting. It's just the way it is.
Well, sometimes there are people that are in like a catatonic state where they're like frozen as a statue, and they're all there. Like, they're in there, but they can't talk. They can't feed themselves. They can't dress. They can't bathe. And part of my doing this job as a caregiver in college, I wanted to tell, at some point, if I get to that level of being an administrator, I wanted to say that I wash dishes. I've been in your shoes. I've cleaned. I've helped change people. I've helped bathe people. I've been in your shoes. I've passed out meds late at night. I've worked the graveyard shift. I've done all that, so that way I can help employees and know what they're going through and feel what they're feeling. And so that I know I can't feel 100% because I know every person's different, but I wanted to feel what it was like to be in that position.
I think that what you just described is exactly what I think a lot of larger companies, not even just in that field, but just in general, I think your large companies, especially your large corporations, that's a big issue, right? Is, there's not that story of somebody who worked up from the lower level, who understands all of the guts and the bowels of this business and what it takes to do it. Because there's all these little one-off intricacies, no matter what position you're in, that help you understand why things function well or don't, right?
Right.
It's like when you have that veteran who's been at the company for 15 years, and there's that one thing that only happens every 3 or 4 years, and you're like, oh, last time that happened, we did this, right?
Yeah.
But when you hire nothing but, people with MBAs from outside of the company that have never worked a day for this business, it's like, I know on paper they look good, and I know they understand business on paper, and I know that they're going to make this place function and make money. But I don't think it makes it a quality business anymore. I think that's what you need, that person. Like, I don't think you should ever be up for a CEO position of a company unless you have worked for that company for like 10 to 15 years minimum.
I agree with you.
That way you just understand, because, it takes 5 years to really get the culture of a lot of places that you work at. So I think what you're talking about, like working up from that level, is so crucial if you're going to truly run a business. Because when you think about your more successful, like I like Tesla, and it's like Elon Musk has been there from the ground up. And so it's like, whether or not you like the guy in terms of his knowledge of that business, it's unparalleled. There's no one in the company who knows more about that business than him.
Because he started from the bottom and he literally worked his way to the top.
Exactly. And it's like, you shouldn't, maybe you don't have to start out in the mailroom like the old way it used to, but it might help. It might help if the people at the top were like, who's been here for a while? Who's looking to be promoted instead of hiring outside all the time? And
also who has the passion. Because I think, I think the hardest thing about being in the healthcare field, which I know you understand this, it's not just doing your job. It's more than that. You are, every time we had someone come in for a tour, you are part of the brand of that company. You're marketing. You're part of that tour. So it's not to say that I'm going to be like, oh, let's do this puzzle really quick. Someone's coming in. No, I'm already doing the puzzle. I can say hi and stop what I'm doing, and I can introduce them to this person that's beautiful on the inside and out that just happens to have a really terrible circumstance. But I was fortunate enough to work and be trained. I mean, I was so lucky. How many, especially women, like executive directors that put me under their wing, didn't even ask for training, but they were like, do you want to do what I do? I could see you would be good at it. Why don't you come into my office? Let's train you. Let's get you started. I mean,
but I'm sure that's because you were taking initiative, right?
For sure.
You were literally willing to go wash the dishes,
And like our social worker, she got really ill. She had cancer. It was really sad. And she was like, can you take over some of my clients? And I was like, I don't have my degree. So they did like a fast track training for me. I went to Baylor Scott and White and UT Southwestern. I was in and out of the hospitals. I got to see what social workers do. I have so much respect. They have such a hard job transferring people. And then the amount of tears and just with eyes, the healthcare system the way it is, it was just hard because you look at Medicare and Medicaid, and when I would go to hospitals and I'd have to transfer someone to a nursing home that they only had 30 days left on their Medicare, and then they would be transferred home, but they're not ready to go home, so they would cry. I have grown 80-year-olds looking at a 20-something-year-old asking me what I can do for them. And the solution I could do was a right now plan, which I learned from Grey's Anatomy, which is awesome. Shonda Rhimes, shout out to her. But instead of thinking about the future, like I would love to change the healthcare system. There's so many things that we need to change. I know you feel the same way.
Oh, yeah.
But all I could think of is a right now plan. So how can I get their situation that's terrible? What can I do to help them right now? So whether that's like extra socks, extra Jell-O, I would sometimes bring people burgers from Brahms. I'd be like, hey, where's your family? Are you hungry? Not because the hospital food is bad. It's just they didn't want what was brought to them. Right. So I'd be like, what do you want? And they'd be like, bring me a Brahms cheeseburger, a Dr. Pepper. So I would bring them food and be like, all right, let's get you transferred. Just those little things because they have terrible situation. And who am I? I'm a 20-something living at home. I don't know what they feel like, but how can I help them and make their day a little bit better? So I just really fell into that world, and I was the youngest. I wasn't married. I didn't have kids. So everybody was kind of training me in all these different departments. Like I was the assistant director of nurses. I learned about charting. I learned about, I loved getting ready for, this no sarcasm, for auditing.
Auditing what?
For charting medical insurance and making sure
making sure everything's billed correctly and all that kind of stuff.
State mandated. The state the insurance companies would come in, they'd be like, is everything up to par? Do you have your binders? And I'd be like, yes, they're right here. I wrote them in cursive. Like, I was like the only 20-year-old. I was like, how do you like my penmanship? This is impeccable handwriting.
Yeah.
I don't know why I just went into that character, but there's one lady, Barbara, she talked like this. And Dani, what are you going to be studying? And I'd be like, I want to be what you do, darling. So I just learned a lot, and I loved it. And I will say this, a shout out to all the activities directors out there, because that is a very taxing job, and it can be like hoarder central.
Well, tell me more about that, because you talk about that a little bit in your stand-up.
Yeah.
And it's so fascinating. You know, how do you even begin? Because first of all, how many residents would usually be like at a facility when you're a director like that, an activities director?
Yeah. So
Is it like 20, 30, 100?
Skilled nursing home is never-ending revolving door, and you have to do an assessment for each person that walks into the building. You have about, I could be wrong, it's been a while, 3 to 5 days to do that assessment. It's the state mandates it, and it has to be in their chart. And then you have what's called like a meeting where all the heads of each department get together. So when I worked in the kitchen, I learned about renal diets, MPO, if someone was diabetic and they couldn't have sugar, diabetic diets, puree meals. So there's all these different ways to assess a person when they come in from a hospital. So it's very tedious, very taxing. So imagine 5 new patients come in on a Saturday. On a Monday, you have to do everyone that came in on Friday plus the weekend. So you have like maybe 10 assessments to finish in 3 to 5 days. Simultaneously, you have to make sure everyone is mind, body, and spirit balanced. So in working with physical therapist and speech therapist, oh my gosh, PT, OT, occupational therapist. It's been a while since I've talked about this. But when you get the head of each department together, my job is to help get them excited for the day and help them paint or plant or bake or things that they love that bring them joy. So that way, when they go to PT or OT or speech pathology, they're able to thrive because I don't know if you know this, but in skilled nursing, if like this is what happened with my grandfather when he got really sick, he stopped trying. So they had to basically kick him out because he did not fulfill the physical therapist had a certain recommendation. So if you're not progressing in skilled nursing, they will kick you out. So part of my job was to keep them happy so that way they could thrive, so that way they could get better, so that way they could go home. Because everybody just wants to be home. Right now I'm seeing a huge boom and trend in at-home healthcare, which I love because my parents, they don't want to go to a skilled nursing home. Not because there's anything wrong with them. They've been in that situation. They've seen what happened with my grandfather, which he was very well taken care of. He just was so sick to the point where he just gave up. He was like, I'm done.
Recently, this past year, my grandmother, she super healthy into her 90s, like beyond portrait of health, right? Just very healthy woman. And then, it was, man, my dad's going to be so mad if he hears this, but I just can't remember what her age was. I want to say we were at like 98 maybe.
Okay.
Anyhow, very healthy, but she was living on her own all the way up until the year we put her in assisted living.
Okay.
And it was because she kept having falls and was refusing to wear like a life alert or something, right?
Yeah.
And so that was the fear, is you're going to fall. Well, she did fall and was there for like a very long time. And then and I think they had to do things like, they cut off the gas to her stove because she was forgetting, gas stove to, it was filling up, doing little things like that.
Yeah.
And thankfully, one of her sons lived like literally, it wasn't even across the street. Like off the street, there was a driveway and her house was on one side of the driveway and theirs was on the other. So they helped her for years and years and years. But she lived on her own. And the facility she went to was fine. They did a good job with everything, but she did not have dementia, but I think the only way they could get her in this facility was she got mixed with the dementia patients. I don't remember exactly what happened.
Was
but
she sundowning at all?
Nope. No. No, she didn't have any issues with that. It was literally just mobility issues, that type of stuff. But I think because she was in there, she had more restrictions. Like she was locked down. She couldn't just go outside. She had to have somebody with her, that kind of thing, because it was a dementia unit, I guess. And so even though everything was fine there, like that was her thing of like, okay, I think I'm ready to go. If I'm not going to be living on my own at my house, it's time. And it was a very rapid decline to her death.
Sorry.
You know, but it's like, I get it. It's like some people just, it doesn't matter how good the care is, they just don't want to be there.
Yeah,
you know?
and I don't blame them. You know, you're kind of taken out of your comfort zone, and now we have. You look at what's going on in China. They have. I don't know if you know about this, but in China they have some things are changing in how family members are able to care for their loved ones, and I want to say with the rise, you know, over here we have the baby boom generation. It's going to be the biggest generation. That's another reason why I got into gerontology. They're going to be the biggest generation that needs to be taken care of. And I say that not to say baby boomers need to be taken care of, but there are going to be some that are going to have a really hard time.
Yeah, just from the sheer volume of
the
people.
population. So in China, they're seeing this right now, so that's why they've ramped up their robotics and having robots do in-home health care. And they've done a lot of technology where they can have someone physically pick up a resident and transport them into a wheelchair.
Wow.
So it's very fascinating. It's probably going to come over here because I can't tell you how many people I've met that are getting into physical therapy and occupational therapy and speech pathology. I've run into a couple, but they're a little bit older. So I think my generation, if they're looking for places where there are jobs, it's possibly going to be with the senior populations in the geriatric world.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's what's so fascinating to me about your journey to that, because it is such a, and it might just be more of America. I know other cultures are different, but it's such an overlooked skill set because it's an overlooked population, right? We're very much like, you get to that age, it's like, whatever, you know, you're older. And that's it feels like a very American thing, right? And then it's so expensive to take care of someone properly. But then everybody feels guilty that they didn't have a plan for it. And so it's out of sight, out of mind, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, crap, Grandma, Grandpa had this issue, and we got to figure it out in a month.
Yeah.
So it's like I could see that whole field needing just so much more support than people realize, and like the career opportunities you're talking about as well. Yeah.
And I mean, it also, I feel like I'm talking about generations I have no business talking about, but you look at the baby boom generation, they're not going to be, a lot of them aren't going to be playing bingo.
No.
You know, they might be in their own rooms with their own space, their own activities. They're going to be just fine. So activities directors, I mean, we would always joke around with my staff because they'd be like, you're going to have such a hard time with the baby boom generation. And they were right, because we had a couple baby boomers come in at some point, like for independent living. And they were like, what do we do around here? Like, what do you have planned? So I would plan outings, you know, and we would do like a casino outing, or we would do a movies outing, or we would, because they wanted, I mean, I think there's I know there's a lot of people that are very ageist.
Oh, 100%.
And there are seniors that they can take care of themselves and they're doing just fine, and they can drive. And a lot of people, they think of seniors and they think of bingo, but it's more than just, even though I loved calling bingo, like that wheel. See, I don't have to do the car. This,
you do the bingo wheel?
Yeah.
It's different. The car is an under. The bingo wheel is an over.
Yes, it's an over. It's very relaxing.
You're right, though. Like, and you probably know better than I do that like people who aren't used to being around elderly people that aren't their grandparents.
Yeah.
It's like they do that weird thing, like they're talking to somebody who doesn't speak English, where they hi, and how are you? And it's
Yeah.
like, it's a person. And it's
Yeah.
like, not only is that a person, like, I think they went through World War II. You don't need to talk to them like that.
Yeah, we
like,
should probably respect
it's
our
like,
elders.
talk
Yeah.
to them like an adult in your normal
Yeah.
voice. Ask like real questions. Not, what you doing there?
Yeah.
It's like, it's not a 5-year-old working on a little painting, you know?
Yeah.
But it is. It's like, it's so weird when it's not your grandparents. It's like, it's easy to look at elderly people and forget, like, that was a whole life. You're just seeing the tail end of it. But, like, the experiences that person went through, probably very interesting once you get talking to them.
Yeah, for sure.
Do you know the comic John Stringer? He comes through every now and then.
Yeah, I just featured for him.
Okay.
At Comedy Arena. in
Oh,
McKinney.
so awesome.
Great,
I love John.
Great comic.
Fantastic. Well, his mom, she recently passed, but she suffered from dementia. I can't remember which type, but he let me come do, I met him down in Austin, and we did a lot of
Nice.
recordings at her house where
Okay.
he was talking to her and doing interviews to try to like preserve memories. And it was so fantastic. But like sitting there for 2 days, I think we did 4 interviews over 2 days. And it's like, I don't know. If I saw this woman walking down the street, I wouldn't have thought there was the depth of life, right? But that's everyone. And it's like,
Yeah.
that's one of the reasons I love doing the podcast is, you know, once you get past the cover of the book, there's always fascinating things about people.
Well, thank you
And
so
of
much.
course.
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
And, you know, that population gets overlooked so quickly because I don't know what age it is. I would say it's probably like, it feels like it's probably about 70 people start maybe pushing you to the side. What was your experience with that? Like,
Yeah, mine, it's so weird because I don't think of, people that are old.
mm-hmm.
My idea of what old is completely different from like maybe your idea of what old is.
Mhm.
So I think old is 90 plus
Okay.
because I've heard the stories and like I've heard them talk.
I know what you're talking about. You're talking about the
I've-
rampant sex.
Well, not yes and no, because I mean they're still they're humans.
humans,
They still
yeah.
do it, and I think it's beautiful. Like, more power to them.
That
but
was usually the Thursday activity you had planned, right?
no, I did have a pageant one time.
Oh, no
Yeah,
way.
and that was hilarious. And
What were the categories of the pageant? What did
so
they do?
somebody did baton twirling,
Uh-huh.
like old school baton twirl. I don't want to say old school; it's terrible.
Some old person did some old baton
Stop! I didn't mean it. Oh, my heart. I'm such a walking oxymoron. I don't know if I am a moron, but that's okay. I'll own it. Someone sang.
So there was a
a
talent
songs.
competition where there
Is
other
a talent. My dad was like, "Is there going to be a bikini competition?" I was like, "You're terrible."
Why not?
No, yeah.
Why not?
Why not?
It's
Let's do it.
2023.
No, we had to. The company was like, "No bathing suit competition"
Okay.
because we had to keep it. I don't know, professional. I don't
Right.
know.
Y'all are charging money. You got to keep it clean.
Yeah, we gotta keep it clean. It was daylight. Okay, if we did the nighttime, then maybe we could do it. No, we had the guys did it too, so they were part of the pageant, and they someone wrote a book. It was great. Like he was an author, and he was like, what is it? Oh my god, I'm gonna butcher this. Aeronautical space engineering for
God.
NASA.
See, like I would love to talk. That's my biggest hobby. I love reading and learning about space and everything. Like I could sit down and talk
I'll
about person
get
for
you.
hours.
Well, he's already passed
Well,
away.
I'm
but
saying though, like again, that's the depth of knowledge that you don't know about these people. Is
yeah.
It's like if you're walking through that facility, you wouldn't realize that guy is fucking smart. Like that's a really intelligent person.
Well, you would, because every tour that we had, he'd be like, "Can I talk to you for a second? I worked for NASA.
yeah.
Do you know NASA?" And I'd be like, "Everyone knows NASA.
We
Would you
know
stop
NASA,
talking about
yeah.
it? Sit down. Stop talking about the NASA." And then a tour would come in and, "Let me talk to you about NASA." And I'd be like, "Yes, let's talk about." And he had a typewriter, and he would write the introduction every morning. And he had his cup of coffee. He'd be like, "This is going to be a really good book." And I'm like, "Yes, it is."
He wrote the
And
introduction to his book every morning.
Yeah, so he had
That was
dementia.
his dementia thing. Is
Yeah.
he just kept rewriting it?
And
Well-
he actually, it was crazy.
Well, if it's
because-
on a typewriter, what was he doing with the paper of the introduction he wrote the day before?
I can't do that.
He was just scrolling past it.
Yeah, he would scroll it and then he would put it down and then he would get up and go have breakfast or go have lunch. Then he'd come back and be like, they all do this. They lick their finger. I don't see
Yeah,
anybody
to turn the page or whatever.
I would get kind of gross. That's the one thing I'd be really grossed at. Like the one thing.
Yeah.
And they'd all
lick their thumb.
And get their money out and
Ugh.
turn the page. So he would be like, get another piece of paper. I never.
So was he constantly trying to write it better, or was he writing the same thing?
The same thing every morning.
But that's what I'm saying. So would he see the paragraphs that he wrote?
I just went on the journey with him. So I would be like, that's beautiful. And if I feel terrible, but sometimes I was in passing where he would set up his little shop, his little desk. He'd be like, I need a pen.
So he'd bring it out like into the common area?
In the lobby.
Okay.
And then we had
and you would just like kick his desk over and be like, "We've already read it."
No. He would stop me and he would say, what would he say? He'd stop me and he'd say, have you read my book? And I'd say, yes, we all, because I did book club. So we all do book club and we'd all read, different books, and everyone had their genre. So we do like murder mystery, and it's kind of embarrassing to talk about it, but there were times where I had to read out loud. And I'm a good reader. But
I read good.
But there were books, that sounds terrible. There were books back then that had words.
Yeah.
Like melancholy and like certain words. I know that now because I read a lot to the seniors. But there were times where they'd be like, sound it out. You can do this. Woo, 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 woo. And I'd be like, someone take over. I'd be like, popcorn Jerry. And he'd be like, you can do this, Dani. And I'd be like, woo, 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 woo. It was so embarrassing. I haven't thought about that until now.
Oh my God.
That's so funny.
That's so funny. The thought of, dementia and Alzheimer's patients teaching you how to read.
Yeah, because they weren't all dementia and Alzheimer's. There were a lot of residents that were all there, but they couldn't drive, and so they'd be like this one lady. She liked Marlboro Lights.
Mm-hmm.
I'd have to get her a pack of cigarettes. One time they were out. I thought she was going to murder me. And she'd be like, go to the gas station. I need my cigarettes. I only got 2 more. Yeah. And I would be like, I'm so sorry. I'll be right back. And
did she have any of those weird things where she's like, don't go to that 7-Eleven. Go to the other 7-Eleven. They've got the good smokes.
Yeah, like they are always in stock at this. All the time. And they were it's interesting, because I've seen this across the board. They're very particular about their routine, which is interesting. That I feel like, not to be like, we've come full circle, but there are times where you have to have a lot of patience. Mm-hmm. And they sit the exact same space. They have the exact same meal. They have, like, when they get set in their ways, they like routine. My son is autistic, and he has to have things a certain way. So I feel like working with seniors in my 20s and getting in that mindset and that muscle memory of, okay, there's this one lady that said, Dani, do you have my coffee? I want 2 creams and no sugar because I'm sweet enough. She said that and then one guy in the back would be like, hey, I want my coffee black, just nice and hot. And I'd say, okay. So my son, he likes to have things just the way that they have to be. And if one thing is off, no. And he'll tell me. So I feel like in a weird way, I've gotten prepared.
Yeah, that was prep work.
My life.
That's fascinating.
With my family.
It's crazy how that stuff works out. That like you never would have been able to think back then that would have been helping you this way now.
And maybe that's why, I'm going to talk about it in my show, but it's kind of what I do is I'm going to be doing characters in my show talking about geriatrics and my work with Alzheimer's and dementia and trying to figure out, where this takes me. I wanted to do TED Talks really bad.
Well, before you go into it too much, where's the show going to be and when's it going to happen?
So it's going to be December 16th at the Kalita Humphreys Theater in Dallas off of Turtle Creek.
Ooh.
And it's
fancy schmancy place.
It's beautiful. So it was designed by Frank Lloyd Wright.
Oh my gosh.
The architect.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. And this is the only theater that was built, and it's in Dallas, Texas. And it's beautiful, magical. It's just, when you walk in, you're like, oh, look at the carpet.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, look at the ceiling. Oh, that's the same ceiling that they had when they got here. And everything, there's no, what I love about it, there's no 90-degree angles in the building.
Right.
So
Yeah.
everything, just like he would design,
Mm-hmm.
it's incredible.
Well, and just theaters in general, when they're done well, are just such, we were talking about like the cemeteries having energy and those vibes. It's like a good theater, it's like, you almost can't have a bad show. There's just this air of like, I mean, I know you can, but I'm just saying the rooms are set up so well to receive a performance when you're in the audience,
For sure.
that all you have to do is show up and go, okay, we worked on it. Let's do it. This is it. You don't have to think about like, does it translate to this space? And it's like, no, the space is beautiful. The space is going to be great.
It speaks for itself. When you see it, I mean, I am afraid of heights, so I was taken up on a tour to the balcony, and they were talking to me, and I was just holding on to the rails, and I was like, oh my God. Can we go down the stairs? They're like, are you okay? And I was like, we're really high up. I didn't know this was pretty high. Woo.
Railing's not is it secure?
I was like, is the insurance inspector, have they been here? Like, can I see the paperwork for that? And they were just like, let's go down the stairs. And the stairs are kind of,
they're old stairs.
Well, they're great stairs.
No, but I mean, they're built in a different time. Like
in a different time.
They're not these big, wide stair, 7-foot wide things because, with massive handrails because we're all obese and trip on everything now.
I wasn't going to say anything, but I go antique shopping with my mom, and we were looking at these beautiful dresses, and this lady came up to me and she goes, what's your size? And I was like, what is this size? -1? Like the corsets and the mannequins. And my mom brought up the fact that because there's so many more cesareans being done now.
Okay.
Because women's...
Here we go. We're getting into science.
There are times where women's, almost like the plate tectonic shifting, there are times where their hips don't widen and things do not open the way they should at times. So usually they have to do a cesarean C-section, and they get the baby out safely while also keeping the mom alive. So if you think about it, we have these babies being born with broader shoulders and bigger heads, and they're just like, here you go. And so everybody's like, hey, how's it going? Like, it's just, we're a bunch of Shreks. We're all a bunch of ogres. We're just like, that's what you doing in my swamp. That was terrible, but I'm going to work on that.
It's like if you go to like an old baseball stadium or something, and you sit in those chairs and you're like, fuck, these are tight.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh no, they all were just more skinny back then.
Yeah.
That's
like,
okay.
So when you're at the Kalita, you're just like, I sat in the chairs. Everyone's going to be fine.
We're going to be fine. They got good chairs.
Yeah. Or like you're going to have one butt cheek. No, it's going to be fine. I'll let people sit in the aisle if they come.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So, and explain more about the show. You were getting into it a moment ago.
Yeah. So I'm basically talking about my journey and my path and how I got into comedy. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to give away too much, but I'm going to be doing real life characters, not Andy Kaufman, not the Grinch, not, characters that I've loved to impersonate. I'm going to be doing my own characters that I've developed from real life meetings. So you're going to see residents with Alzheimer's, with dementia. I'm going to be talking about death. It's going to be lighthearted and funny, but it's going to be dark at times. So I'm going to educate people in a way and kind of paint a picture of what it was like to be in your 20s and be surrounded around death, and then the light at the end of the tunnel and where I am today and how it shaped me as a person. And I just genuinely love comedy, and I love how it can bring people together, especially when you're grieving and you have loss. And then it can also, it's almost like going into, like, I didn't grow up going to church, so when I do go to churches and I hear people pray or sing, I get very emotional. Like, I start to cry because I'm like, everyone is so collectively in this moment of like just feeling everything, and they're all in this, it's almost like this root, like it's transcendent and it's beautiful, and I don't understand it, but I love it. Like, I never grew up with a dog, but when I see people with dogs and I see how in love they are, or with cats or parrots, whatever, I'm not trying to say dog lover, but when I see people with their fur babies, I'm learning about the vocab and the language of that. When I see them, that's their family member. So I'm starting to understand those relationships. And so when I'm in a church setting and like a wedding and everyone's bowing their head and everyone's praying and they're all thinking the same thing and they're all in this moment. Maybe one guy is like, God, I really want to hit on the bridesmaid after this. But like, I just love that collectively everyone's in this moment together of prayer and like peace and whatever. And I want that for the show that I'm doing. I want everyone to be in this moment. Maybe it's prayer, maybe it's something else, but I want to showcase what I'm capable of. And I love crowd work. There's going to be singing, dancing. It's like basically an hour of me. So hopefully
because I don't think you mentioned this is going to be a one-woman show.
It's a one-woman show, and it's me. It's an hour and 15, and I just finished writing it 3 days ago. So it's very,
That's
and
so
awesome. I have a director, Lauren Davis. She is very well-known comic, sketch writer, performer, improviser. She's directing my show. So she's a powerhouse, and I really respect her. So she's going to be taking this task on with me, and I'm nervous. I'm excited, but I'm going to knock it out of the park. So I think it's going to be great.
What initially made you decide, this needs to be a one-woman show?
Yeah, I was actually, I don't want to say talent scouted because that sounds kind of, someone was sitting in the back with a cigar. Hey, see, you're going to be a star. It wasn't like that, but someone did come up from a show I did at Dallas
like
Comedy.
a stand-up show?
Yeah, well, at Dallas Comedy Club, I did a stand-up show, and someone came up to me and was like, hey, you do characters. I've seen you do this, 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 and this. I was wondering, like, do you do a show? Like, do you have a show? Because I performed at the Fringe Festival in Scotland last August, and I did Andy Kaufman in Edinburgh, and that was amazing. And I think it was, Phoebe is she's an actress. She has her own TV show, Fleabag. Waller, Phoebe Waller.
I don't remember her name, but I know who you're talking about.
I just butchered her name. I feel terrible.
I'll look it up for you.
Thank you. I want to give her, I think the word is due diligence. Don't ask me to spell that. But she performed at the Fringe Festival in Edinburgh. And
you were right. Phoebe Waller-Bridge.
Phoebe Waller-Bridge. She has her own TV show called Fleabag.
Yeah.
And she got discovered at the Fringe Festival. So she's doing phenomenal. And she did a one-woman show. And I was told by many other improvisers or comics or storytellers, and they're like, you have all these characters, what do you want to do with it? I didn't know what a one-woman show, one-man show, one-person show. So I looked up like John Leguizamo, who did Sexaholics, and Whoopi Goldberg, was on Broadway with her one-woman show. And I started watching it, and I was like, oh, I can do that. I want to do that. So it just kind of, I guess it took someone coming up to me saying, why aren't you doing this? You do all these different characters and all these different things. So it just kind of popped in my head. And when I'm pretty driven. So when a thought comes into my head and I want to do it, let's do this.
I love
ready.
That. I love hearing people that talk like that, because why not?
Yeah.
What's the worst case scenario?
Yeah.
Your one woman show, if it went poorly, isn't going to ruin you. You know what I mean? And just not even performing it yet, right?
Right.
Just getting up to this process of it. It's like, how much have you learned? How much have you sorted out just in general about putting something like this on, the writing it's going to take? Are you guys doing any set design for the stage?
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like all the little things. It's like there's all these little lessons. So it's like no matter what happens to it, it's still a win from that aspect.
For sure.
Because the experience you're getting out of it. And the reality is if you're putting that much effort into it, it's not going to suck. You know what I mean?
It could, though.
No.
That's okay. Like I'm
won't
not...
suck because are you happy with the way it's written right now?
Yes.
So that's the point, right?
Yeah.
The point is you want to tell this story, right, with these characters. And you're going to get to do that. The only way it would truly suck is if you had to make tons of compromises with yourself because you were thinking like, this is what they'll like. I'll do this so they like that. But really, it should be more about like, how can I tell it as true as I want to, the way I'm happy with it? Because at that point, if people just don't enjoy it, like, well, whatever. You can still be proud of it, right? You know, it's like you can still say it was good. It just didn't vibe with as many people as I thought it would, right?
And that's one thing I want to do. I'm trying to immerse myself in different genres. I say this because it sounds stupid, but I'm trying to be a spherical performer. I want to learn from the best, and I know DFW, I mean, the talent that we have right now is insane. Like,
I think it's pretty good too.
Like, every time I see someone at an open mic, and I'm like, I can't even laugh because I'm like, that was a great joke. That was a great premise.
Yeah.
That was a great, like, and then there's people tagging it. And then there's people, and then there's just so much talent, like storytellers, improvisers. You know, there's so many people that are so passionate in this area that why wouldn't I take a class here and take a class here and take a class here? I want to learn from the best so that I can be a spherical performer. And the company that is helping me with everything is Moon Dance Theater Company, and I've seen them perform, and I've seen how dedicated they are to theater and song and dance, and I was like, oh my gosh, there's tap dancers, there's different age groups, there's different backgrounds, and everyone comes together, and I'm like, oh, this is a family. This is what theater is. This is beautiful, and I'm honored that I have all these different people, you know, like Lauren Davis, like David Benedict, like, you know, Jared Berger and Vaughn Daniels at Comedy Arena, and Lindsay Goldap at Stomping Ground, and TK at TK's. Like, there's you know, Rosie at DCC, and Jamie. Like, there's so many different people that have, you know, Addison Improv, Sean Trainer. You know, all the guys reached out and they were like, hey, we're doing this Halloween show. You want to do a Halloween show? And then I sat down at the kitchen table with my parents and I said, hey, can you help me? I want to do Pee Wee Herman. Well, that's already taken. I want to do, you know, I can't do it, but Carol Burnett, and that's already taken. I was like, all right, fine. What am I going to do? Mom said Andy Kaufman. I was like, who is Andy Kaufman? I didn't know who he was. What an imposter I am. So we looked him up on YouTube. I was like, this is the most brilliant, funniest thing I have ever seen. I have so much respect for this character, and wow, I have to do it. You know, they Addison Improv put me on as Andy Kaufman. I ended up winning second place. I think it was Christy Hayden. Christy Hayden. I knew I was going to mess up that last name. Sorry, Christy. She ended up winning first place, and she knocked it. Like, amazing. Beautiful work. Everybody did great that night. But, like, from there, someone said, you should do the Fringe Festival. And I was like, I should do the Fringe Festival, and
I will do that.
I will do that. So it's not just me and my imagination or me and my dream. And I think that's where I'm going with this. I know it's not very eloquent, but there's so many people to thank and so many people that inspire me in this industry. And it's just, I'm just blown away by the talent. Sometimes there's a lot of pressure. Sometimes you get FOMO, you know, because...
Well, I mean, there's a lot going on, though. It's easy to not hit everything.
For sure.
You know?
And that's the beauty of it.
A lot of the interviews I'll do in the evenings here, I'll book the interview, you know, a month or two out, and then I'll go like, oh, great. There's that show I wanted to go see with those people on it on the night I'm doing an interview. And it's like, it's just the way it goes.
I'm sorry you weren't able to see a show tonight.
There was a serious show I wanted to watch tonight. No, No, actually, there's one
King of the Hill.
There's one on
Reruns.
Thursday I want to watch, and I have an interview on Thursday. So I was like, wow.
Just be like, I'm sick.
Yeah,
I'm not
right.
going to be able to make
And then I'll
it.
run into them at that show, maybe.
Oh, that would be great. Be like, you know what? I felt better. Got a baby, so I'm fine.
Yeah. No, it's true though. Like that was the that was one of the reasons for this podcast starting is I was just going to different comedy shows and concerts, you know, and you realize like, God, there's a lot of talent here. And it's taken me, you know, a few years to kind of understand why we have so much talent here, but yet it doesn't get the exposure it maybe deserves on a national level or more. And I'm still figuring it out, but I think at this point, it feels like we just don't have the resources of an LA or a New York in terms of like production companies. I don't know if it's necessarily agents and managers, but you know, like you were talking about working with this fantastic director on your show, right? And it's like how much that guidance helps you. And I think those types of people are a lot of what we're missing around here. Okay. I think right now a lot of people want to be the performer. Right, they want to be the person on stage. They want to be the person in the limelight.
Yeah,
and I think a lot of people forget that those people need someone to help them do these things. Yeah. But that job isn't necessarily as glamorous. Like nobody's going to be like, "Did you see the sound guy at her one-woman show? They killed it." You know, like it. But how crucial is sound? You know, when you're at a concert or right.
Yeah.
And so. Just little things like that, or how many of y'all need like quality recorded clips to promote yourselves on social media, but you don't have the means to go invest, you know, $3,000 in good cameras and all these types of things, right?
No,
the time to learn it all, but there's also not a lot of people around here that can do that well, affordably, or want to, and so it feels like that's what we lack. That if we can build up that aspect of DFW of kind of that background infrastructure, that it's a pretty unstoppable area.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
And I think it's going that route, but I'm also still learning. You know, I don't know if that's 100% the answer, but yeah, I mean, it's rare that I go to a show now and think, everybody sucked. Like this is, God, I should have just stayed home.
Oh,
it's
that
like,
makes me happy.
There's always a handful of just like, you know, if it's a showcase style where you got, you know, 7-8 comics, it's like 5 of them are going to be good. You know that.
Yeah.
And out of the other 3, it's rare that someone's just god awful. It's usually like they're working on it. They're figuring it out. There was some funny stuff there. They just need to tighten it up, you know?
Yeah.
But I don't know. I love the scene here. It's very interesting. But it's also equally as hard to just understand in terms of like you can't peg what's going to do well all the time and what's going to suck. It's just so like it's a moving target all the time.
It's an eclectic revolving door, and there's always something to see or something to hear, and that's why I like it. It's not. I've never done a show where everyone sounds the same or everyone talks the same.
Right.
Like the styles are different, and I've been noticing that the new talent coming up is so eager. I think they had that wait at the pandemic where they wanted to start and they started writing, or they did Zoom comedy shows, or they were trying to break out into doing comedy, and now they're like, I don't want to say hungry, but they're eager and they're ready to learn.
Well, they probably thought about it for 2 years. You know, oh, I can't wait to try this. Can't wait, and you know,
And that's great. I think the new talent, I'm really excited for them, you know, and I think a lot of talent that comes in, from what I was told when I started, is like you have to pay your dues. And that's something that, like, gosh, that late night, like you might go on at an open mic or you might not. I think there were times where in 1 week I did like 10, like just back to back. Either I was on a show or I did an open mic, or I was just traveling from, we had like, I don't know, 5 in Fort Worth, and then there were like 4 in Denton, and then 2 in Plano, and then 5 in Dallas. And it was just this like everyone was like, hey, you going to that open mic? Yeah, I'm going to that open mic. And it was like late night, like, what are you eating? We're going to IHOP. Oh, God, again? Or like, what do you eat? We're getting wings. I could do wings. Or what do you get? Pizza. So you do this like late night and you're like, oh my God, I'm gaining weight. This sucks. I'm like, oh, I have a zit? I haven't had a zit since 1995. This sucks. But like you go through this, like you're in the trenches with everyone and you pay your dues and you may not get up or you might be in the last block. And you look at your watch and you're like, oh, it's like 1 a.m. And that was my whole night. But when you're that focused and that driven and you work hard, not to be like a poster in elementary school, but when you,
hang in there.
Yeah, like the cat. Like hang in there. I think a Key and Peele right now. That's so funny. That's a great episode. I'm going to watch that when I get home. Like, you hang in there. But no, I think what's beautiful is that it's interesting and beautiful and it's hard. And people look at Instagram or HBO or Netflix and they're not seeing, I hate to say the grind because I'm not cool enough to say that word, but they don't see the work ethic and the drive and it's very hard to do what we do. It's not easy. And there are things that you have to sacrifice with anything in life, but you know, this comedy scene, wow, the sacrifice and the drive I'm seeing right now is great, but also it's like still got to pay your dues, you know, kind of thing. And I think there's so many people that I started out with that are now just like just thriving and they're going off in their rockets and they're doing great. I don't know why I'm using so many. NASA. It's like, NASA. Have I told you about my book? We come full circle, but like, don't you see that? Do you see a lot of new talent? What do you think about the talent that you're seeing?
I love going to open mics. I live closest to the Dallas Hyenas, so I'll go to that Wednesday night one every now and then. And it's really interesting. I took my wife to one, and she was like, "Never take me to this again."
Oh, was it date night? I'm so sorry.
No. She knew. I think it was before I started this podcast, and I was like, I'd gone to the Hyenas open mic a couple times because I'd been listening to like the Kill Tony show, and I understood what like a music open mic was, but I didn't understand what a comedy open mic was. And since I'd listened to Kill Tony, I kind of had an understanding, but I was like, I need to go see one of these, you know?
Okay.
So I remember going up to the Hyenas one and watching like all the blocks, like from start to finish.
Wow.
I just wanted to see, like, I need to digest all of this, you know? And to me, it was very fascinating because a lot of it was really bad. But it was just interesting seeing how rough the circumstances of an open mic can get the later it gets and the room gets empty, and it's just the more like it's either the new comics who are terrified or comics that have maybe been in the scene for a while and aren't progressing like they want to, and they're a little jaded, and that's your audience. And trying to get someone like that to laugh is very difficult, right? So it's like when you saw an open micer make those people laugh who didn't come here to laugh at you, they came here to work on their set, you're like, oh, that was like a real, like they got them. They earned that, you know? Yeah. And so you saw like that little spark in them, as well as like as an audience member, you're like, oh, all right.
Posture change.
Wow.
You might
did you see
up.
what they did?
Yeah, that was great.
And you catch yourself rooting for them. And that was when I really understood, like, man, it takes a lot of effort to write a well-crafted set. Yeah. You know, because I remember when I first started going to comedy shows, and this was like years before then, you know, it's like I had a lot of misconceptions. Some of the early ones were I thought everyone on stage was like from out of town. Like they all flew in for the weekend to do a show. The opener, the feature, the headliner. Wow. I was like, these are probably all famous comics who just came to Dallas for a show, right?
I love that.
And then I thought, I don't know if it was before or after that, but I remember thinking like every show was probably different. That like these people were so funny and talented that they just get up and be funny. Yeah. It didn't dawn on me until watching several comedy shows like, well, that's stupid. They can't get up for an hour with brand new material every time they do stand-up, you know, and just, I just, like, you know, you go to a party and there's just those funny people. Yeah. I just thought like, oh, these funny people get on stage and make money. They don't write this stuff. They just do it. And it's like, I wasn't consciously thinking like, no, this is something somebody has to work on. So
Yeah.
Once all those pieces came together and I started watching open mics, and I realized, like, God, it takes in the early stages, like, it takes so much to succeed, for 5 to 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And then, so I would catch myself, like, watching that spark at an open mic, being like, okay, that was kind of funny. Like, I see what they're going for. That's interesting. And then as I started doing the podcast, I noticed it'd be like 6 months, a year later, a year and a half later, you would randomly catch that person that you saw on an open mic. So out of the 60 people that were there that night, 30 of them don't do comedy anymore. And then another, 20 are like doing it all the time and they're doing okay. And then, another 10 are like, they're doing pretty good now.
Yeah.
And you would see that 10 and you go, oh man, that was that shitbox of a joke they were working on a year ago. But they moved this stuff around, and now it's pretty funny. Like, now
it takes a long time. Sometimes.
And then you see, like, their stage presence improved, their confidence improved, and you're like, and then the light bulbs go off of like, oh, that's the paying your dues, And it's like, wow, they are funny. They just sucked at putting it all together, and now they're doing it. And it's like, I say it on this show all the time, but it's like I try to encourage people. It's like, start going to open mics, not to like laugh your ass off right now, but it's like you'll kind of grow with your community. Like, you'll see these people improving. Yeah. And then there's almost something really fulfilling about okay, the best example right now would be like Ralph Barbosa. He's like the hot thing in our area right now. He just blew up and had like the dream success story of right place, right time, been honing his craft, and everything just kind of fell into place. Yeah. And it's like, I got to watch Ralph perform for like 7 people at Stomping Ground or 10 people, whatever, like a small crowd. And now I'm seeing him still use some of that material, but tweaked and perfected even better. And you're just like, fuck, that was so cool to see the original bones of that and to see what he's brought it to now. And you almost catch yourself like rooting for those people even more because you know what they went through for it. Yeah. And it almost sounds douchey because you're like, I saw them back then when they were nothing. But it's not like that. It's more of like, it's interesting to watch the process.
Well, it is and it isn't. So there are times where...
I mean, my wife hates it. She's like, I don't care about the process. Let me know when it's funny.
I think you have to be kind of like... a person that looks at it and says that's a fascinating process. You kind of have to study it.
It's super weird.
Like I dated a guy in college that would watch college. He would do watch college football, and then he would go on the journey with the quarterback or the tight end or whoever, and then he would watch that person get drafted, and then he would. I mean, that journey is just that's a lot of dedication, and you have to like really be a part of that community. So I'm glad that you're promoting that for people to come.
I mean,
and
how much would you love it as a comic if you walk into an open mic and it's just sold out?
There've been a couple
it's incredible,
open
right?
mics where it's like, should I do my old material for this crowd and not do new material? But there are times where you do shows and you're like, I'm going to sprinkle in a couple new stuff, but I'm going to do my old stuff because I feel like this one's going to land. It landed at a couple open mics because eventually you're going to have to do it on stage. You're going to have to rip it off like a Band-Aid. There have been times where I've done this where I'll say my punchline or I'll mess up the joke. And instead of saying, you know what, let me do that one more time. I messed that up. I'm going to start the joke over. I just keep talking. Yeah. You just got to keep, they're not going to know. Like, it brings me back. I play piano. I don't play it very well, but I play by ear. And there are times where my mom plays piano. And my dad would be like, oh, Dani, that was the most beautiful thing you've ever played. And I'd be like, thanks, Dad. And my mom would be like, you messed up a couple keys. And because she knows. So the comics, they'll know in the background, like, hey, why'd you mess up that? You always do that joke. Why did you really mess that up? Were you out of in your head or what? Are you hungry? What's going on? And I'm like, I don't know. I never messed up that joke. And then you get mad. But the whole audience is like, that was a great joke. And I'm like, oh, because sometimes as comics we get off stage and we're like, God, that was the worst set of my life. And it really wasn't, but we know what it's supposed to sound like, and we know those big roaring laughs.
Well, I've rarely talked to a comic after a show and they've been like, that was fantastic. It's they never say that. They're always like, oh, I don't know. And I'm like, the crowd seemed to really like it. I had a good time. They're like, you know.
Yeah, we're our own worst
y'all are
critics.
idiots. You don't know that I suck.
Well, I don't know about idiots. I just think like when you hear, because I can't speak for all comics, but there are times where if I'm driving home, I'll record it and I'll listen to it in the car.
Yeah.
And I hear the laughs, and I'm just like, let me rewind that for my ego one more time. I'll be like, I wonder if I could take this laugh track and just use it as my alarm clock in the morning. So it's like, whoa, coming to the stage, Dani Bee. Oh my God, thank you so much. And then,
Yeah.
So
it's a weird ride that y'all choose to go on.
It is, but it's a fun one. But it's not, what is the phrase? Not for the faint of heart. Is that a phrase?
That is a phrase.
I think that's the one.
It feels appropriate.
Yeah. If I was in the circle, they'd be like, what does it mean, Dani? Sound it out.
Sound it out. You can do it.
A faint of heart. No,
oh
but
my gosh.
Yeah, so I think the comedy world and the scene that we're in is a great right place, right time. Maybe it'll happen. Maybe it won't. But I'm enjoying this ride, and I'm very driven. And I hope something comes. I mean, I'm learning a lot, and I love doing what I do.
Well, you'll get what you want out of it. You know, like you either keep doing those things that you want to do, or you don't.
Yeah.
And I think not just with like comedy or anything, but just like my biggest passion was music. You know, I play guitar, and those were the types. I was playing in bands, playing guitar in bands, and that's the biggest thing you see is it's like if you're doing it to. If you're trying to put the success first, right, it's going to be so difficult.
Right.
But it's like, are you thinking about, what am I writing? Why am I writing it? Why am I creating it? And I feel like if people do those things and just realize, like, it may never happen, but I don't have to be famous to keep creating all this stuff.
Right.
Right. And then it becomes more earnest and more true to yourself, at least. And those projects have a much better chance of succeeding than, how many like shitty ass bands do you see with their like sponsored ad on Instagram and it just sounds like the same cookie cutter, whatever, right? Whatever, pick your genre. And they're worried about like, this looks like it sells. And meanwhile, what's that guy's name? He just wrote that, some guy just went viral. He has a song called The Rich Men North of Richmond. And he's like a nobody, and he had a song that went viral, and it's just a simple song that he wrote. It's like the recording's not even that great, but it just connected with people, and now all of a sudden it went viral, and he's like on the Joe Rogan podcast, and he's huge. Yeah. And it was over a matter of like 3 weeks. And it's like, if it's what you want to do, that's all you can do. And then sometimes people just connect with it. But if it's not really what you want to do, if it's what you think people want, nobody really ever connects with that.
For sure.
You know what I mean? It's like, as shitty as they are, the Island Boys are doing what they want to do. It's like, I don't fucking like it, but it resonates with somebody.
Yeah.
It's like they're doing their thing.
Yeah.
As douchey as it is, it's them.
Yeah.
And it's like you can learn a lot from that. I mean, it's very interesting. It's just the whole idea of like, just try not to be phony. As long as you're not phony, you're going down the right path. And then you just stick with it. And it's like Rodney Dangerfield. He didn't get big till he was old.
Yeah.
Well, not 90. That's your old. But
that's my old is 90. Like,
but I'm
going to be a star at 90.
But how many people were probably thinking like, when's he going to hang it up? And then he ends up becoming hugely famous and successful. You just don't know.
Well, was it Harrison Ford? I don't know. What was he? As a carpenter or something?
I think he was working on movie sets.
And then, he's one of the biggest.
The guy who plays. Did you watch Parks and Recreation?
I did.
Ron Swanson.
Yeah.
Ron. I can't even think of his real name now. But anyway,
is he the guy that
Nick
talks
Offerman.
like this?
Yeah, that's how he started. He was doing set design all the time. He was building sets, doing all that stuff, and he's married to Megan Mullany, who was on Will and Grace.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure that's probably like how they ended up bumping. So it's like
Yeah.
just by doing what he enjoyed doing, which was like woodworking and building, he gets a career and meets his wife. It's like that's all you got to do. Is just do what you would like to do.
Yeah.
So I think you'll be fine. I think you do your one-woman show and then see where it takes you.
I'm just gonna. I'm trying not to think about the future too much. I'm just gonna put it out there and see what happens. But
do you think? Well, you said right now it's a one-night show, right?
Yeah. So my thought process
do you have thoughts of like doing like, I'd love to do it for like a couple weeks?
Yeah. So if I can't believe I'm saying this out loud. I was like thinking you're going to talk to me about this. So it's 497 seats, which is very bold for me to think that I don't even have 490 friends,
Yeah.
but I hope I have fans that will want to see it. And if you build it, they will come. If I sell out the 8 o'clock show, my thought process is I'll add a 5 o'clock show that day. Because I have it for the weekend. I have the theater for the weekend. But I don't want to be like, guys, I have 5 shows, so grab your tickets. Because no, I'm not famous. Nobody knows who I am. So my thought process was I'll do an 8 o'clock show. If that sells out, I'll do a 5. If that sells out, I'll do a matinee on Sunday at 1.
Why not? Yeah.
If that sells out, I'll do an 8 o'clock that rehearsal day on Friday for me.
Have you thought about, even if it doesn't sell out, if it just sells a lot, to go ahead and add the shows? Because you have the theater.
Right, but like it might be.
What if it sells out? What if it sells 70%?
Yeah.
That's still a lot of people. And then what about those people who might go to a matinee but wouldn't be able to go to the evening?
Those are going to be my seniors that are going to do Lubies first, and then they're going to want a matinee.
Well, I was going to ask you about.
I want to do the 1 o'clock.
Like other than like coming on podcasts and stuff, have you thought about unique ways to promote it? Because it is very directed at senior citizens, geriatrics, dementia, Alzheimer's, right?
Yeah.
That's a huge population of not only people who might personally experience those things, but like their family members, their relatives that would all probably find it to be incredibly entertaining.
It's funny you say that. So I'm actually inviting all of the nursing homes and then the staff from my professors from Texas State that are going to drive up to come see me. And then I have a pretty big family because my dad's from Ecuador and the Ecuadorians are coming in. So I got to make fun of the Ecuadorians. And then my husband being a Dallas firefighter working in the healthcare field. And then I have friends that are nurses at hospitals. My cousin's an ER doctor. And so I'm hoping that the healthcare field will resonate with it, but I also want this to be, it's PG-13, so 16 and up can come. Young teenagers, young adults can come. So I don't want it to just be focused on geriatrics for the audience, but I want like my fellow comics and my fellow improvisers and just like my fellow peers to come see everything that they've helped me become, you know, and I'm hoping that if it's 70%, that's great. Like I'm happy, I'm so embarrassed.
I shouldn't have even put a number in your head.
Hey, it's okay. It's okay. This is a safe space. Yeah. In the basement.
In the weird Silence of the Lambs.
With the the hose again. Yeah. But I don't have hives right now. It's fine. And there's just I thought about it, so oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm saying this. I made a list of people that I know that have asked to come see me perform. And right now I'm at 297.
Wow.
Of people that want to come see me perform. I haven't even put it on social media, like here's the ticket link here. So I haven't pushed it out yet. I think I'm not afraid of failure. I'm afraid of success.
Well, when are you going to put the link out?
When this podcast hits, I was gonna do it tonight, but I think I'm gonna do it day.
Get it out there.
I am so nervous, but because I'm putting a lot.
Listen,
of me
you're a
out
wife,
there.
You're a mom. You know all about working that schedule. So the sooner you can get it out there, the sooner people can throw it in the calendar and then get babysitters, whatever they need, and make it happen. You know?
I this is so embarrassing. I talked to my bank teller that I've seen since I was like 15, and she's been keeping up with me, and she's old. Okay, she's been there since I was young, and she always asks me if I want a lollipop, a dum dum. And so I go, not today, thank you. Well, how about for the kids? And she hands me 2 dum-dums, and she goes, when's your show? So she's going to invite the whole bank staff is coming.
There you go.
So I'm inviting Luby's Cafeteria. Like,
what'd you say it was, 400 seats?
497 seats.
Okay, we're just going to say 500 seats.
Oh, does it sound weird when
497?
So when I was younger,
500. It's 3 shot. If 3 people stand in the back, it's a 500 seat crowd.
You know, this is so embarrassing. Okay. I did this when I was younger. People would be like, "Hey, what time is it?" I'd be like, "It's 4:13."
No,
or it's 4:03. I wouldn't say it's 4. It was so weird. So there's 500 seats at the Colita.
Yeah, there's going to be 500 people there. When you think about staff and everything, it's like. It's going to be a 500 seat show. That's going to be incredible.
Yeah, I'm selling merchandise. I have merch. I can't believe I just said merch. I said grind.
I'm slinging merch.
And I said merch. I'm not cool enough.
What kind of merch are you slinging?
Coffee mugs.
That's great.
Which is great.
That's great.
I just got my logo.
I'm a fucking snob about merch.
Really?
Well, not like the individual merch, but like the items that people choose to sell, the items that they think they need. Like I'm so, like it's so simple. It's like think of what you use on a daily basis, and what you might. It's like it shouldn't just be like who doesn't want a fucking coffee mug, you know? So. And who doesn't have that one cabinet filled with mugs? Yeah. And then like when family members come over, you're like, okay, on Christmas you dump out all the mugs, and you're like, there we go. What's this? Oh, I went to a one-woman show.
Oh, Dani Bee. What's with the bumblebee? That's so weird. Yeah.
No, that's great. So what else? Coffee mugs?
I'm doing T-shirts.
Of course.
And I'm doing, like, firefighters love this type of hat, this bill. They love, I forgot what it's not like a trucker hat, but it's almost netted. And then I'm doing my logo, Laugh After Death, with like a skull. It's kind of dark and twisty, but it's great. It's I got the husband's approval, so I'm going to do that. And then I'm doing the oversized like softball T-shirt. I'm a sucker for different color sleeves. Yeah. And there's going to be the 12, 16, 23 is going to be on the back with my name on it. And then it's going to have my logo right here. Because I don't want it to just be like, Dani Bee, like
I know what you mean.
You know,
I've thought a couple times about, could I make merch for this podcast?
For sure you could. I'm waiting on that coffee mug.
Well, what I wanted to do initially was just make like limited runs of stuff that only went to the guest.
Nice.
That way, like if you were on, you had like a little memento that we can both, remember the moment by.
I love that.
And then I thought that would just be way more fun if you knew it was kind of like if you ever saw somebody wearing one, you'd be like, oh, hey.
Yeah.
You were, what episode were you,
Yeah, give me that beanie. I'll wear that
I don't
beanie.
know, like just like you said, the thought of putting something out there with my name on it, I'm always like,
I know. You sell out. You're such a sellout.
Who am I? Why am I putting my name on
why am I
shit?
putting my... Who wants to wear my stuff? But people have asked me after shows, like... Comics will have their merchandise, and I'm so proud of them when they do that. I'm in awe. I'm like, look at you with your wristbands and your stickers and your bottle openers and your I don't know what they're called, like ring chain, like safety security measures. Like, I'm really impressed by them putting themselves out there. People will come up to me after the show and they're like, do you have anything? Can we buy your shirt, or where's your I'm like, you could buy this shirt. Like, you could buy, like, I've got some, like, a sweatshirt in the car. Do you want to buy that? And they're just like, no, that's okay.
Well, that's good. If they're asking for it, it's time. Yeah. Did you do stickers?
I've never done merch.
Stickers.
I've never done stickers.
Don't do stickers.
I think they're kind of cool.
It's a fucking waste.
I thought about doing magnets. People love
magnets. Are better than stickers. When was the last time you stuck a sticker on something?
I will say all the time because of my kids.
Oh, that's right. You messaged me about that.
It's okay. I was waiting for my scratch and sniff sticker, but that's okay.
No, but like, when was the last time you got like a band or a comic sticker and you like put it on your binder or your car or whatever?
I actually had a comic. I will not name this person's name, that stuck one on my shirt to wear at a show that I was on with them. And I thought it was very like,
it's cringy.
I'm not here to promote you, but thank you for the sticker. And I was just like very
Yeah, and you just wasted the
I was
60
like,
cents.
oh no, it came off.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry. I felt bad.
No, don't do those. Yeah. If I would do like a magnet or like a beer koozie or something before I did.
I did look at koozies.
Yeah. I just think stickers are such a waste now. And I used to have like, when we were touring in that band, our van, like the back
covered
6 windows.
That's
just
awesome.
So it's like, I'm a sticker guy, but it's just, what am I going to do? Like as a dude in his late 30s, I'm going to sticker up my window now.
Your laptop?
No, I can't do that.
People collect on their laptops.
It drives me crazy to see stickers on laptops.
Binders? You going?
I don't have any binders.
You do a night class or something?
Okay,
that's when we did. You remember Pogs?
Oh yeah,
Man,
yeah.
that was my jam.
Wow.
I used to collect all the Pogs.
Get you a bitchin' slammer and you're good to go.
Bitchin' slammer. Oh my God, I forgot about slammers.
Yeah.
So much fun.
Yeah, look, if somebody can create Pogs and the world got excited about it.
Don't put this on the podcast. This is the one. What if I did a comedian Pog?
I mean, I don't know who's going to buy it, but it would be fun.
No, because the 90s are making a comeback. Have you seen
Try it out.
the clothing? Everyone's like wearing.
Well, and they all think that it's like original, and it's like, no, it's just your take. Like all fashion is cyclical.
Yeah,
it's like
recycled.
I've seen all that shit.
We all went through it.
I wore those Jinkos.
Yeah.
All right.
My mom was like, stop wearing cropped. We did the 60s when I was growing up. We were bringing back the 60s. So
yeah, that's exciting. I'm really excited about your show now.
Thanks.
I'm pumped about it.
It's going to be great. Like, I know it's Laugh After Death. I know it sounds sad, but it's also about, you know, being in your 20s, and when you're around that all the time, your time kind of slows down. And when it's hard to date, like I talk about dating during this time, and I talk about relationships, friendships, work ethic, and when you're around people that are on their last month or their last days, you kind of get pushed to seize the day. Like you're watching all these people, and you're like, man, this is both, they're having a great time, but this is also really sad because I'm a part of their end of life, and I was a part of a lot of people's end of life, and those kind of carries with me. So
how many people towards in the end of life days, when they know it's coming, right? Could be tomorrow, could be a month, whatever. How many of them were like, trying to think about how to say it, you know, like what they expected after death was going to be? How many people got like very religious and spiritual, and how many people were like, it's just darkness, here it comes whenever, you know? Was it always a different take, or were there similarities?
A lot of similarities, a lot of religion. So a lot of different religious backgrounds. We would have clergymen or priest or preacher or rabbi. We had like different religions, different traditions, and I would just be like, is there anything I can do? And they were very, very religious at the end of life. So there was like, I need help crossing over. I need.
See, I'm like you. I wasn't religious growing up, and I'm just not that religious now. And, you know, like I said, I love space. I love learning anything about, like, the universe in terms of outside of the planet.
Yeah.
And so when you think about, as far as they know currently, like, the universe is infinite. I mean, infinity, like, I'm such a geek. There's a whole Netflix special on infinity. And
Is that what it's called? Because I'll watch it.
I think so. I'll send you a link.
But
it's just about, like, did you know there's more than one type of infinity? Like, just that kind of shit. And they're just trying. And it was more of just trying to grasp, like, what is infinity? Because you think you know what it is, but, like, you really can't understand that it's forever, you know?
Yeah.
And so then combining those thoughts to things like finite life. Like, your life will end. It will stop.
Yeah.
And then, so I always wonder, you know, there's those people who are very religious, and they like wholeheartedly believe their religion, accept it, and there is no question.
For sure.
And then you feel like there's those people where it's like towards the end, and they're like, well, better hedge my bets, right? Like, just in case.
Yeah.
But like, it's just fascinating, you know, to see people kind of like, you know, when you're running through life, like at our age, you don't think about mortality that much. The average person, anyway. I think about death all the time. but you know, you're just going through life, and you don't think like, we are spinning on a dust ball that's floating in infinity, and no one knows why.
Yeah, and we're just floating by.
We
Kinda
have
like,
no understanding why this happens.
Kind of like Dr. Seuss, Horton Hears a Who.
Right.
You know, we're on this little tiny speck of pollen, and we're all these worlds. Like, think about ants.
Yeah.
Ants have colonies and families and tunnels, and
Yeah.
they have no idea that there's another plant, there's another world, there's other beings. That's just all they know. And
you ever think about fish and how like if a fish goes out of water, like you pick a fish up out of, you're fishing, you pull it up out,
yeah,
and it's like, in its mind, it's in space, right? It can't breathe. I'm going to die. Like, put me back in. It's this out-of-world experience, right? And it's like, oh, my God, there was an alien creature that was holding me, and he threw me back, and he was like, it's not your time. And, like, I think that's probably somebody's bit that I stole, by the way. But
I did not know.
But they don't even understand that there's, like, an atmosphere and then there's space.
Right.
Like, there's another level of them,
right.
And so I think about that a lot. It's like, man, there's probably some sort of boundary to the universe, because we used to think it was just the planet, then it was just the solar system, then it was just the galaxy, and now we know and now they're pretty certain that there's multiple universes. It's not just ours, and it just keeps going,
expanding.
Yeah, and so I still don't really buy into religion at all, but I do get fascinated with it because it's like, well, something did create all this, and it's like nothing, whether it's science or religion, knows why. So it's so fascinating to watch, to like watching people get very religious towards the end of life.
Yeah,
is really fascinating because I wonder is it just their way of finding peace with it all, or do they get so nervous they're thinking like, oh my gosh, there's got to be something. It can't just be nothing.
Yeah. I think everyone's different, but from what I saw, like a couple. So there was one gentleman in particular, and I said, "What do you want to do?" We did what's called like a Make-A-Wish, where because I didn't like that all these kids, which granted they should,
all these kids getting the attention.
Well, it's like I
know what you mean.
Other side of the spectrum. So it's like, why aren't they getting a Make-A-Wish?
Right.
Because they lived a life, they should get it. Yeah. So I asked him. I said, "What do you want to do?" And he goes, "I think you were there that night."
I remember this from your bit.
He wanted to go to Hooters, and I was like, God, this is the worst day of my life. Please don't make me do this. And they all, like, even the women wanted to go. And it turned into, like, a monthly thing. I would, and then
Y'all did a monthly trip to Hooters?
Yeah, my boss came up to me and she was like, you might get a lot of, pushback from the sons and daughters, but, I'll be in every meeting with you because we had to remind them that these are men and women and we live in different times, and just because they're older doesn't mean that they don't want to look at beautiful women. And I think I have a different take on Hooters now that I'm older as versus when I was younger. And so now that I saw what happened and the joy and the excitement, not like that, but like just, you know what I mean? Like, because when I
saw those throbbing,
I looked into the microphone and I said, "Oh my word!" But when
I know what you mean, it's an exciting outing.
It's just, I mean, I had taken them to the Dallas Museum of Arts. I did not have the emotion that I was hoping for, like, look at that sculpture.
Yeah.
Or look at that. I took them to the botanical gardens. I was like, look at all the flowers. And they were like, we want to go to Hooters. So I would take them, and it was great food, great service. All the staff, not just the waitresses, but even the manager and, sometimes the cooks would come in and they'd be like, how do you like everything? And they were very social, and those social interactions. And I remember, it's funny how I go back and forth with my son in this because I'm talking about it. It's crazy. But I remember the way people stared at them. Like, this is so inappropriate. Why are they here? Or they would laugh at them. This is so funny. I got to take a picture of this. And there are times where my son does things in social settings that other people will stare at him. And it's weird how this is like toughened me up now that I'm older. I just had that epiphany, sorry. But when I would go to Hooters, and you would just beep 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 every time a beautiful woman would walk by, or some of them would push their life alerts and be like, I can't breathe, where's my oxygen? And we'd have to go on the bus and get their oxygen.
I genuinely thought that was just for your bit. I didn't
No.
think that actually was happening. So they were really like getting their heart beat up and like having some small.
Yeah, and I was like,
they were living.
Well, so it's interesting. We had a meeting. So every Monday morning we had our meeting, and we would all stand up. Only the executive director would sit down, and all of us. It would make us get the meeting done faster. I loved her culture that she created there. And we would all stand up, and she'd be like, okay, what are you working on today? What are you working on today? What are you working on today? Dani, what are you guys doing today? And I'd be like, we're going to Hooters, but I need extra nurses. I need extra oxygen. I was like, I need stretchers. We might need paramedics there. And they're like, do they have a ramp? They do. She would have to do shift changes so that we would have enough staff.
That's
because
hilarious.
they would need their medication there, because they would get their
They're
blood
eating a
pressure.
meal,
Their blood pressure would go up, and it was a safety risk. So when we would go to Hooters, and me and the manager was so great.
I was going to say,
his
you
name.
had to have had a relationship with the manager at this point. Be like,
They would open the door for all of them. They had their table. It was like their Last Supper type of the long table.
That's fucking great.
And they would all sit around, and we would show up, and the table would not have all but 3 chairs for the staff, or a couple residents, but predominantly everyone was in. And I was the bus driver, so I took everyone to their doctor's appointments. So when we would go, I had this one lady, I'm not going to say her name, but oh my God, I miss her so much. She was so grumpy, and she'd just be like, are we going to a doctor's appointment? I'd be like, no, we're going to Hooters. Okay, good. I love Hooters. 5 seconds later, are you taking me to my doctor's appointment? No, we're going to Hooters. Okay, I love Hooters. I think I'm going to get wings today. Okay. And then she just looped all the time. And then we'd get there, and she'd be like, Dani, I'm so happy. This made me so happy. I'd be like, that's great.
That's incredible.
And I had so much fun. I had the best outings.
You talked a little bit about the families. Did you have to get permission to take them out for these things?
It's funny you say that. Yes and no.
I'm sure it varied on their cognitive abilities, right?
It did and it didn't. So there are some people that were elopement risks, which is something that I'm going through with my son right now with his autism.
What'd you call it?
Elopement.
Okay, what is that?
That's not like The Graduate where they're gonna elope and get married.
Yeah.
Someone had to explain that to me. I was like, what do you mean my son's gonna get married? He's only 4, damn it. But
you sick bastards.
you son of a bitch. No. This could be great theater right now. But apparently I needed to yell. We might but it's so big. Sorry. But there were times where residents would come up to me and say, my doctor says that I'm looping and I'm sundowning a lot. So they would go out the front door and they would elope, meaning they would walk away, leave, go into dangerous situations where they would not come back.
So it's a fancy way of saying jailbreak. You're running out of there.
Yeah, or like a flight risk.
Yeah.
And so we got to the point where we had to tell the manager of the Hooters or, Dallas Arboretums, they had to do a safety protocol where I would give them a checklist of how many residents I have, how many staff I have. And I'd say, in the event someone, walks out of here, can you please alert us? So we, would have a group picture, and then we would leave it with the front so they'd know to see who's leaving or who's coming and going. And, there were times where I'd take them to malls and we would go mall walking for exercise. And I saw a completely different culture there at the mall. There were people that, would say hi to us. And then there was a bench. There's a picture that I'm going to show at the One Woman Show. It's one of my favorite pictures. And one of the nurses took it. And it's me with all my, I say favorite. You're not supposed to have favorites, but I have favorites. All my favorite residents. And we're sitting on this bench. And they're all because they're tactile stimulus, they would all rub my arm or my hand. And they would forget where they are. And then they look at me and be like, I love you so much. Thanks for, where are we? This is great. Oh, do I need a dress? And I'd be like, no. And then someone would get up. I'd be like, it's okay. You can sit. It's okay. And then we'd get up and we'd start walking and they'd be like, don't go too fast. Don't. And I'd be like, we're all chained like little links and we're all walking. And everybody like Gap and Old Navy and wherever, they would all come out and be like, hey, how's it going today? And I would say, I'm an activities director. These are my residents. Would you mind interacting with them? And so they would make it a point to be like, hi, how are you? 50% off Christmas sales. Come on in. Would you like to try some lotion? And they'd be like, oh, this smells lovely. And so we'd work on their senses.
Right.
So
it's weird how just being human again is so helpful.
It is. Yeah. And it was their daily living, activities. And a lot of people take those things for granted. And, I would take them to the grocery stores. Mm-hmm. That was probably my hardest. I talk about that on stage sometimes. I haven't done this bit in a long time, but there was do we have time for it?
Yeah.
There's a resident that I took to the grocery store, and he was so funny. He was very tall. He was like 6'7".
Oh, wow.
And he was like strikingly tall, but he also had advanced dementia. So we were at Walmart, and my boss wanted me to do a chocolate fountain social. So I got like fruit and everything, and then I had somebody else wanted me to get their grandson like a cop outfit for their birthday. So I got like, the typical handcuffs and everything. And then the resident I was with at the time, we'll say his name was Carl. Carl came up to me and he goes, hi, I got some Vaseline for my skin. I was like, okay, I put it on the conveyor belt. And so we get everything out, and he looks at me and he goes, Dani, this wine's on sale. We need to capitalize on this. If we're going to have a chocolate fountain, they could drink alcohol where I worked. We had margarita, we had happy hour every day, and they could have like a drink.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I think we have enough wine. He goes, why are you such a fucking Debbie Downer? And I'd say, ma'am, I'm so sorry about that. I'm like, get the wine. And so he just like 5 or 6 bottles of wine.
Well, it's a deal. You gotta get it.
You gotta get it.
Come
and it was
on.
like a pyramid. And so I was like, can you drink alcohol with all the pills that you're on? He goes, just shut up. And so we get everything on the conveyor belt. And this is when they didn't have self-checkout. And someone checked you out. And so the lady was like looking at me weird. And I was like, do I have something on my face? Like, why? I was like, what's on my face, Carl? He was like, nothing. You're beautiful. I was like, thank you. And then she looked at me and she was like, chocolate, handcuffs, Vaseline. And I was like, oh, shit. Oh, my God. And she goes, is it y'all's anniversary?
Yeah.
Like she was like that kind of woman. And I looked at Carl, and without missing a beat, he goes, fuck yeah, it is. And I was like, ugh, Carl. Grow. And he's like the
What a legend.
6'7", just like, are we going to Hooters after this? Like, let's go. It's our anniversary. So we get on the bus, and he's just looping like crazy. He goes, it's our anniversary. It's our anniversary. And so we get on the bus and we get home. I say home because it was basically like my second home. Mm-hmm. We get back to the facility, or I shouldn't say facility, shame on me. We get back to their home, and as soon as we walk in, everyone's like, here comes Barbara, and she goes, did you get my menthol lights? And I'm like, yes, here they are. Did you get my Skippy peanut butter? I want creamy, not the nut. Last time you got the nuts, it was terrible. I had to tell my doctor, here's your creamy peanut butter. Here's your cop outfit. Here's your talk. And here's Carl. Everyone sit down. I have a story to tell. It's the best story of your life. And rumors were like the plague and everyone was trying to set me up with the FedEx guy.
Ooh.
And their grandsons and their nephews.
Of course.
And, the doctor's coming in town. He's great. He's got a giant mole on his face, but don't worry about it. You can cover it with makeup. It's fine.
He makes enough money to get that removed at some point.
It's going to be fine. He's a great guy. But everyone tried to set me up with the FedEx guys. And there was this one guy in particular. We'll say his name was, I don't know, Pedro. And Pedro would come up to me and be like, Dani, have you seen the calves on this man? And I'd be like, what? What man? And he goes, not the UPS guy. He's got weak calves. If you want to marry this man, he's got to have strong calves. The FedEx guy, check out those calves. I'm like, are you coming out? Is this what's happening? Why are you so attracted to, and that's fine. This is a safe space.
Yeah.
Why are you so attracted to the FedEx guy? And these guys, I was like in my 20s, and these guys were like in their 40s.
Mm-hmm.
So, which, age is just a number. For some, I get it. But for me, I was not in that realm.
All I'm hearing is it's a guy with nice calves, got a good job.
So every
probably
time
got a nice pension going on.
Pedro would be like, go talk to her. Talk to the woman. Don't just take her out and paint the town. Like, the way they talked was so funny to me.
I imagine them. I know it didn't happen, but what I wish you were going to say is that one of the days when you showed up to Hooters with all of them, they invited the FedEx guy, and he's like joining y'all for lunch that day. Like, set y'all up on a blind date.
If for some reason, some crazy miracle, I get a show or something, I would do that episode, and then you'll bring me back on the podcast, and you'll be like, Dani, I wrote that part. Where's my money?
I would just love to see it go down because it's just so. It sounds like something Adam Sandler's already written, and I don't think he has. It's like.
There were times where I would get introduced to like younger people that like haven't even come of age. Like, they're not 18 or they're not like, and it was just weird because they'd be like, he's young, but he's able. And I'm like, this isn't World War II, Jeff. Stop it. He's not going off to war. We don't get to, because they got married when they were young.
Yeah.
And they had like 6 or 7 kids.
Yeah, the laws were literally different back then.
So different. Different.
Oh my gosh.
But they all tried to play Cupid and set me up, and I just wanted to work. And so everybody was like, what are you doing here? You're not supposed to be here. You're too young to be here. Everywhere I worked, I was almost like 90% of the time, I was the youngest person. I wasn't married, and I didn't have kids.
How much material have you tried to write about this whole subject? Because I feel like we could talk for like 4 hours about this.
For sure. I haven't.
It's like, I feel like you could do, it's hard enough doing your stand-up just the way you're trying to do it now in terms of writing and everything, but I feel like you could write an entirely separate, hour of that material that you didn't even go to like comedy clubs with. You just went to like special events for people who deal with these things, and it would kill because it's just so like, you can't make those stories up, like you said, all the stuff on the conveyor belt, in front of the cashier. It's like that stuff just happens, and it's so fucking funny.
And I didn't even like
and then the little details of like, of course the guy's 6'7". Why wouldn't he be, out of the norm height?
Because you think they shrink. Not all of them shrink.
Right.
Some of them do, and it's like when they hug you, it's like no, get out of there. That's mine. It's like a little baby nursing or something. But because when they nuzzle, there's something beautiful about hugs with people with Alzheimer's or dementia. Their hugs are like, I need this. Don't let go. I need comfort because of their tactile stimulus, and they want that touch. That's why they're always rubbing and cleaning stuff, because they miss that tactile stimulus.
Yeah.
So, getting back to what you were saying, all those details, I have thought about writing a book, a collection of stories. But I don't know who would want to hear me talk about this on stage.
That's interesting, but I think people would want to hear you talk about it on stage. I think it would be, I don't know. Maybe we'll talk afterwards. I don't want to throw out all these ideas.
That's okay. I love ideas, because if you tell me, Dani, I think you should do a 1 hour, you should talk about this, and I
think it would be worth writing just to see, because it's just so fascinating. Like, because I think a lot of what makes stand-up interesting is, first of all, it's the unique perspective, right? Like, your life is your life, and if you can tell those stories of your life very well, it's very interesting. Like, most people don't realize they have an interesting life because they just don't know how to get it out there. They don't know how to say it, and it's only when you talk to somebody for like an hour or so, you're the one kind of reminding them, like, that was all very interesting. It's just since you lived it over, 30 years or whatever, it doesn't feel interesting because it didn't happen quickly. But when you compress it into a small format, you're like, wow, that was fascinating, And the other thing is just, it's so, like, so many people don't understand geriatric life, right? So that aspect of it alone is fascinating. And then you throw in somebody who's not geriatric, who's having to like keep tabs on these people and take them out and make sure they're doing well and thriving. And it's like
very hard to do.
From grocery stores to Hooters, and it's like it's really fascinating. So you would already have them hooked just with the subject matter, because they're not going to go to another show and see that, right?
Yeah.
I haven't seen too many people doing geriatric dementia humor.
Well, so that's kind of why I wanted to do the one-woman show.
Yeah,
I'm going to be talking about it a lot. And
I think that'll be a great test run, and you'll realize, because that's, let's be real, like dementia, Alzheimer's, just the brain in general is like the last frontier of science. Like how much they know is incredible, but it's dwarfed by how much they still don't know. And it's still just this thriving field of research to try to understand it all,
Yeah.
And because the population keeps growing, and like you said, we have people getting older and older, like more people are either afflicted with it or they know someone directly who is, right? So almost anyone you talk to has a relative that dealt with some form of that. And so it's much more relatable, but at the same time, it's like that, like especially Alzheimer's, it's like that hush-hush topic, people don't want to talk about how funny and silly it can be. That's just like, oh, I'm so sorry. That's so terrible.
Yeah.
And it's like, it is, but you got to find a silver lining at some point,
Right.
It can't all just be doom and gloom the entire process.
Yeah.
Because like you said, even though they're afflicted with that, they're still capable of having real human interactions and daily life interactions.
Yeah.
So to like hone in and go, this is the only aspect about them that matters now, is they have this illness.
Yeah.
So I think because of that, it would kill, because people would go, there would be a lot of enlightenment, but it's done through humor, so it wouldn't seem like preachy, like don't treat people like this, like it would, like you said, just the mall walks of like, can you hand them some coupons? It's like, like so silly.
Have those interactions.
Yeah,
and
but
have those moments.
Yeah, but to learn that matters, or like you said, just like a perfume sample or some lotion, all that. The Hooters thing is just beyond what I ever would have expected.
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine anyone ever getting like clearance for that, first of all.
Yeah.
And then it's so genius. Like,
well, it also to add to what you said about taking them out. There were times where I partnered up with a preschool. I had read this article online where there's a preschool in Switzerland that would frequently go to the retirement communities, because there are some seniors that didn't have children and they never had grandkids and they don't have that experience. So at the place I worked at for like 3 or 4 years, there was I worked at many different companies, so I learned a lot from different departments, but there was a preschool. So I went to the preschool and had a meeting with the principal, and I said, hey, is there any way that you guys could walk down the street and volunteer, and like maybe we do a pen pal? So we had like the kindergarten, the first grade, we had them write letters to our seniors, and then the seniors wrote letters to them, and then they would come over and trick or treat in their costumes.
oh my gosh.
And they would go to all the residents. And that was like, it was very confusing to them at times.
To the kids or the residents
both,
or everybody?
Both age groups. But we had to like, not police, but we had to like make sure that they understood that they're leaving. So we'd say, they'll be back. They'll be back. Because they would then get confused and say, oh, that's my granddaughter.
Oh,
so we would explain to the kids. So the parents would come and chaperone their own kid, and we would explain to them how we're going to do this. So we always want to embody and enrich the mind, body, and spirit with residents, because just because they're older doesn't mean that they're dead. And when it's crazy what happens, there were a couple residents that weren't eating. And so I wanted to do, with applied sociology, doing research analysis, I used what I learned at Texas State, and I did a research study of my own. What would happen if we introduced a younger generation into the senior population? So we had them bring their snacks or their lunch, and the seniors ended up eating because there were children around. So they started eating. So I started I started conducting these little experiments. Then we had the high school students that were down the street. The high schoolers would come in, and we did this huge carnival one day. There was one guy, we couldn't get him out of his room, and he was sad. His wife died. His sons and daughters sadly lived upstate, like in another state, and so they couldn't visit him. So I was like, what's one thing you've always wanted to do? And he goes, I used to love doing carnivals. So like we did a secret carnival where I had all the high schoolers at their end of like senior year project. They set up like bobbing for apples and like ducks and fishing, and like they all had like a beanbag toss and like the balloon darts. So everyone had a station. And I said, hey, can you please do me a favor? Can you come downstairs? He goes, no, not today. I'm not feeling good. I was like, I know, but I want to show you something. If it's not good, I'll take you back up to your room, I promise. And we shook on it. So he came downstairs and he started crying. And like I'm not going to cry, but all the residents were so happy. One resident was like, are we going to Hooters after this? He was like, this is for children, Dani. But all the residents were like, all of them were happy. The nurses dressed up. Like we all had like different stations, and he was so happy. He said that was the best day of his life. And it wasn't his end of life. Maybe
Right.
He was just depressed, and sometimes we turn into hermit crabs, and sometimes I'm all for giving people their space. You know, I let him stay in his room because he's done, and I understand that, but I wanted him to know that we're here for him. And like, so we did a carnival. It was awesome. It was so, my friends were like, do I have to volunteer again? Because like, I was like, I need volunteers. My parents came, my brothers came, like my nephews, they were so little at the time, but they came. And then I expanded it because I did the newsletter for the assisted living. So I would do a newsletter like every month, and they would like, I would interview people and like write an article on them, and then I'd be like, here are the highlights. It's just like everyone in Hooters, and someone would like, I'd see like the newsletter torn, and it would just be the Hooters photo, and I'd be like, Bill, not another one. He goes, I like this one. But I don't know where the photo went, but so I just saw a lot. And I had the residents' family members bring their grandkids in. So when I incorporated activities and enrichment moments, I made sure that my calendar reflected on what the residents wanted to do, not what I thought they wanted to do. So from working at the skilled nursing home and doing assessments, and from, my activities director, Dottie Caldwell, she's like my second mom. I still talk to her. And I've known her since I was really young, in my 20s. She's great. She taught me everything I know about how to enrich their lives and make sure that they have a happy ending. So she said that's all we're here for. And it's crazy because she's super religious, and she hated that I didn't go to church. And she's always like, I'm going to pray for you, baby. And I'd be like, you don't have to pray. Like, it's okay. And she'd be like, I pray every day because you're my baby. And I'd say, yes, ma'am. So, but we still talk. We still keep in touch. I know we got off topic. I'm sorry.
No, you didn't get off topic. It's all part of it.
But I just, I was always making them laugh, always playing. Like they had a beautiful grand piano, and then we had a dog that was every community had an animal. And what was really creepy is going back to what you were talking about with like death and everything. The full synopsis. Anytime a resident was going to pass away, the dog knew.
Jeez.
So the dog would go to the door. It was crazy. Like I was like, I don't know.
Did any residents ever see the dog like coming to their door and they're like, get that fucking thing away?
Yeah.
Like it's not.
Yeah. Sometimes.
Oh, wow.
Sometimes he would come into my office. I'm like, not today. Get out of here.
What was the dog's name?
I can't tell you because then.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Sorry. Don't do that.
It's okay.
Yeah. But wow, that's crazy. Fucking dogs. I had a dog. I love dogs.
That's great.
If I could, there's some guy has a TV show. I can't remember where he was, but he's like independently wealthy, and he adopts like senior citizen dogs and the dogs that nobody wants. He's got like a farm with like literally 30 or 40 dogs, and it's like that would be incredible. Just yeah. There should be a program that puts the elderly dogs with the elderly residents.
Well,
or is that too much elderly?
No, I think that's a high risk because sometimes dogs. I don't know a lot about dogs, but they get aggressive. Like we'll
just make sure they're very immobile dogs.
Yeah, or like a resident that's a high fall risk might trip over that. See, I'm thinking
that's a good point.
I'm thinking about safety and insurance.
That's
and
a very good
like
point.
That.
All right, fine. Ruin my dreams here.
Here's a dream that
Why don't you let me
had.
start a business and get sued before you shoot it down? Okay.
I'll piggyback on that. I say that a lot. I don't know why I keep saying that. So I have a list of things that I want to do if I become famous. Like I have a list of things that I want to, like projects I want to do.
Mm-hmm.
So there is this one project because there's a lot of, I call it a cement wonderland. There are like buildings that are being built and there's no businesses, but they've been forgotten. And then builders are like, I'm going to build over here and we're going to build another shopping center. And I understand the economy and, we got to make sure we're all making money and we got to have nice buildings. So the buildings that aren't being maintained, I want to repurpose them. So I want to create kind of like a place for my brother. I have two older brothers. And they're both very heavily involved in sports when we were growing up. But one of my brothers blew out his kneecaps, and he had ACL, MCL surgeries at a very young age. And he had to learn how to walk again. So he started getting into video games. So growing up, we played Sega, we played PlayStation, like Twisted Metal and Crash Bandicoot and like Mario and... Donkey Kong, like everything. Street Fighter.
Yeah, I love that.
He was like, no, but we played a lot of games, and I noticed that he got so wrapped up in video games because he couldn't play sports. And I look at the generations now, and I want to create a gaming place where people can compete against each other, like. Let's say, or even like a room for D&D. I just found out Dungeons and Dragons, like Stranger Things, are like the game Dungeons and Dragons. And so I want to create a safe space for people that didn't want to do sports or didn't want to do band or didn't want where's their space?
Right.
Rather than just their home. So I want to have like, I don't know what it's called, but like an NFL tournament where, like, maybe we have some Dallas Cowboy players come in. Because, they're playing... I don't know what that's called.
What?
The game that they play. Game day or game... I don't know. What?
The game?
NFL. What's the...
Madden?
Madden, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Sorry,
I'm with you.
I didn't play Madden. But
it's okay, yeah.
Like, what if... How cool would it be if, like... I don't know. Team names... the Cowboys are in town and they're like, hey, Danny, I'll come by and play some young kids. And what if they had a team and they were playing teenagers? I want to create a place, a safe space where it's like a yearly subscription. Kids can be dropped off and it's a safe space and we have like staff and they can just go play video games to where they're not bothered. And then there's a floor for autism kids that just want to get out and the parents need to go shopping or they want to go and they just drop them off. Not like a daycare, kind of sounds like it, but a place, a safe space.
It's closer to like an after-school activity kind of thing.
Yeah, but like, I mean, something that's fun for kids that aren't involved in all these like athletic things. And then next door to that is a coffee shop. And that's where seniors who feel like maybe they don't have any more purpose, they can come in and they have like security advised safety like cubicles, if you will, but they're glass. And let's say a kid who doesn't have a grandparent or doesn't have a dad, doesn't have a mom, it's just like, I need help. I need advice. How do I balance a checkbook? Or how do I get into college? Well, you'd fill out a form. You come into the coffee shop or restaurant, whatever, and someone would say, guest number 5 needs help applying for colleges. Well, here's a 10-year professor that worked at such and such, and he knows everything about administration and how to get you admitted into and what you need for college. Or, or someone just started playing chess, and he wants to play the best chess player in Dallas or whatever. We have a chess player, and you can go to gate number 12 and you just sit. Or someone's like, hey, I just started dating this girl. what the hell do I do? How do
Yeah.
I know? I don't know. I have this like idea in my head to like, how do I bring generations together, but also in a safe way, because I know it could get really. I know. I always have to think about the bad.
Did you watch?
Oh gosh, Family Guy. What?
No. Did you watch Space Force with Steve Carell?
No.
It's
How
relatively
have I
new.
not seen that?
It's relatively new, but
Oh, is it a show?
it's a show.
I have not seen it,
But
I will.
he plays this. He's the general of the Space Force.
Yeah.
And so it's all comedy, but it's really good. Like John Malkovich is in it.
Okay.
It's got a lot of heavy hitters, and
Yeah.
but he's talking to this influencer who comes to the base, who's gonna like help their brand or whatever. And it's like these worlds collide. He's a stuffy general. They're an influencer, a business mogul, and all this. And
Yeah.
and she's like, "Come on, I bet you've got ideas." And he's like, I mean, I had this one idea, you know.
Yeah.
And he's talking about, he's like, you know how there's so much to be said in like a handshake, like a good handshake.
Yeah.
And she's like, yeah. He's like, I just thought, like, what if we had a device, like, you know, here in America, you put one over in China, and you can go up and shake the hand of someone in China, you know, and like the connection you would have. And then like later on, he's talking to a coworker. He's talking to a coworker.
Why does my mind?
They're like, you did not do the handshake I did. They're like, yeah. He's like, you know, people are just going to use that to jerk people off. And he's like, no, there's going to be an attendant. We talked about this. There's going to be someone there.
I'm just saying, it's going to be a safe space. But that is hilarious. And when I watch that show, I'm going to think of you.
Oh, it's so funny. Yeah, but anyway, yeah.
There's going to be clear tabletops and clear dividers, and everything's going to be clear.
There will be an attendant. There will
There'll
be someone
no
there.
bathrooms in this place. No.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah. Well, let's wrap it up. I had so much fun talking to you.
Thanks.
Remind everyone when the show is. And at this point, you're going to have a link up for them to get tickets. So where's that going to be at?
It's going to be at the Kalita Humphreys Theater in Dallas, Texas. The show is on December 16th at 8 p.m. If that sells out, I will add more shows.
Let's focus on 8 p.m. We're selling that out.
We're selling out
8 p.m. is the
500
show.
seats.
If you wait for that next show and it doesn't show up, you're going to kick yourself. So go to the 8 p.m. show.
Go to the 8 p.m. show.
And you're going to have links on like Instagram, Facebook. We're going to do all this, right?
Facebook. I might get a TikTok. We're going to do the whole thing. And then...
Is it all just Dani Bee or what is it?
It is all at comedian Dani Bee.
Okay.
And then Dani Bee on Facebook. And I'm going to have an early bird special.
Ooh. So
the promo code, if people are going to be watching this and seeing it, it's Dani Bee 23. So it's DANIBEE 23, and you get $5 off of your ticket.
Come on, that's a deal.
So it's a great deal.
The
seats, the whole theater is beautiful. It's amazing. You're going to get a snack box.
What?
Mm-hmm. And a drink that comes with it. And then I'll have merchandise at the show. It's an hour and 15 minutes.
Yeah.
It's going to be a phenomenal show.
It sounds like you've put so much effort into it. So you've already got me and my wife going. I'm going to drag her to it for sure. Oh, yeah.
Oh, I like that you said drag. That's perfect.
Well, she is so sweet, and she just trusts me now. I'm like, we're going to go watch this thing. And she's like, okay. And most of the time she enjoys it. Every now and then she doesn't. But like she works in healthcare as well.
Oh, okay.
And she's had relatives that suffered from Alzheimer and dementia. So it's like right up her. I know there's more to it than that, but like just the little bit of conversation we had about it, she's already going to love that. This might be the first podcast episode she listens to.
I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
She hears me talk. She hears me talk all the time. So she doesn't need to tune in and listen to me more.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, that's so awesome. I'm so excited about it. And once you get through it all, we'll bring you back on, talk about the post game report on it all.
I would love that, and I will watch so much after this.
I'm just going to send you crazy amounts of links.
Yes,
don't worry.
please do. I'll watch them all. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks,
I appreciate
Andy.
it.
The I'm a Fan of podcast, music, comedy, and more.